This hangout on air is live. Mix Minus Podcast here, Matt McQueenie with Chris Kerrigan for his second entrance to the show. And our newest entrant, Pat Newman, high school classmate. I feel like I mind that constantly, the high school
Yeah.
classmate thing. But the most important thing is Pat is a beer guy, and he brought a heady topper, which is from The Alchemist, and it is the number one ranked beer, or is it IPA or beer? Which one?
Beer. Straight out, all beer.
Number one ranked beer, and Chris has some weird one, but the number one ranked beer in the world, I think, as told by Beer Advocate.
Beer Advocate. I mean, however far you want to take that, but it's number one.
Now, do you think it's only number one because you can only buy it in Vermont and the rest of the country doesn't get it easily, so it's like, oh, we're going to go with the thing that's exclusive?
I think that's a part of it, and I think I was actually saying this to my friends being up there this weekend, is the part of it that the guy got totally wiped out because he had a bunch of brews, he had a bar going, totally wiped out by Hurricane Irene, kind of similar to like a Sandy story. All he had left was the cannery, and he's just making heady topper, he's just making cans of that, and just good, and has that legacy of a guy that got past Mother Nature, if you will, up there. And it's just, you go up there, it's almost a pilgrimage. People are always looking for it. And when I picked it up in the same store, it was a guy from Arizona there saying he was getting it. I golfed down in North Carolina last year, and they were telling me how, oh yeah, we send guys up there to get heady topper all the time. It's just got this weird mantra about it.
Isn't that one of the neatest things about beer right now?
It's crazy, and it's almost getting overloaded at this point. But
they all taste the best ones all taste pretty similar.
Yeah.
But it's like the packaging you could put around it,
yeah,
the story you could put around it, the mythology. But this one, this is gonna sound messed up because I was trolling this guy right here. So last year I can remember, because we're all on Facebook, and while maybe we don't talk to each other, we see everything everybody's doing. And Exhibit A to that is I can share things. You guys know what Bitly is?
No.
It's this URL shortener.
Okay.
But it also tracks the link. So it's good for Twitter because it gives you a shorter character limit to get in there and fill up your message as much as possible. But it also tracks how many people click it. And sometimes I'll put things up, and there will be maybe 3 likes or 4 comments because we can't be Sean Pennis page. But there will be like 60 clicks or 100 clicks, and you just go, whoa, there's a lot of lurkers.
Yeah.
And so last year I saw you had like a picture where you had 2 cases of heady topper. And I remember looking it up, or I knew beforehand that it was just this unbelievable beer, number one. And I remember looking it up going, oh, you can only get it in Vermont?
Yeah.
And then when you said you couldn't do the podcast till this week, I said, he's a teacher. I think he's probably going back to Vermont.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm trolling, I'm CSIing a little bit, although no one's dead. I don't think yet.
I mean, it kind of gave my own heady topper story.
You did. And so you weren't even going to buy it this time.
No, because after the 2 cases, and plus loaded up 2 cases to my small refrigerator my girlfriend at home was not too, hey honey, I'm coming home with 2 cases, 32 cans each of heady topper. Make room in the fridge. Ooh, that didn't go over too well.
I don't understand that.
No.
No, it's weird. No. Was she with you when you went up there to buy it?
No, definitely not at the time.
So it's a pretty unbelievable thing. But the heady topper is just like a totally sick beer. I'm trying it for the first time. I trolled him on Facebook and I said, are you by any chance, or I saw that you posted entering Vermont, and I said,
yeah,
Pat, don't mean to troll you. I think you even said it.
Yeah,
would you be able to get some heady topper? And then the beauty of Facebook, all of a sudden Chris jumps in, Sean Penna jumps in, and a 4-pack. You always know a beer is good when it comes in a 4-pack, by the way. Dogfish Head 90 Minute. A lot of IPAs are like this. When it's a 4-pack, it's high alcohol and it's legit.
I was just down in Delaware 2 weeks ago.
Dogfish.
I got the 120.
You didn't make it out of the hotel room.
I couldn't finish the beer. The IPAs taste like grapefruit juice to me,
but that one doesn't taste too heavy.
120 is heavy duty though. That's a heavy.
But
hitter.
It's actually tolerable for me. I can't drink the whole bottle, but it's actually a nice beer.
My friends have aged 120, and it's like you're just drinking heavy alcohol, and it's great, but it's just like whoa. So I imagine fresher, it's definitely more tolerable. Like you're saying,
I was staying in Dewey Beach, Rehoboth Beach, and Dogfish started as a brew pub in Rehoboth, and then they like, well, we make good beer, so they started the whole brewery
sure,
and for mass production. But the stuff's all over the place down there.
Oh, absolutely. It's all over the place here, too. Rehoboth's great. I went down there last year. I mean, you're right, humble beginnings, and they're just known. The guy's had like 2 or 3 shows now.
Yeah, the Brewmaster. And
I follow them on the Instagrams. They got a lot of good posts on Instagrams.
Yeah, they're wild, man.
I love craft.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the stories. I love the pilgrimage. Chris and I used to do this with bands. When we were straight edge.
Armstrong.
We were straight edge in high school, so that was our thing, Stretch Armstrong. We went and saw Stretch Armstrong 7 times in one summer, and I still get the chills listening to that. I don't even remember if we talked about it last time, but we went to his house. We probably did. It's hard to even remember, but it was.
I had just gotten my license.
Yeah.
We went to what the hell was the name of that shop? Music Connection.
Music Connection,
in Elmwood Park.
In Elmwood
it's closed
Park.
Now.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's there? Dunkin' Donuts? Or there was one.
There's
there,
a Dunkin' Donuts next door. I'm not sure exactly what the old Music Connection.
Probably knocked it through. It's just a straight Dunkin' Donuts now.
But we went and picked up this album. We came back to my house, and I had a good stereo system in my room.
Like literally, don't even undershoot it. He had this. His room was just a bed masquerading as a sound studio.
Yeah.
Bose stereo system.
At every corner of the house.
Yeah.
So we were ready for this.
The Kerrigan household had unbelievable music library system.
My father had
everything.
A whole bunch
Your
of stuff.
father
He's got
just
a lot of
vinyl. Yeah.
I used to love the electric drum set he had downstairs.
Still has it.
Yeah, that was fun because that was always weird the first time you played an electric drum set because you're just like, this doesn't seem
You're
right.
hitting rubber and it's making a sound. It's like
whoa,
mind blown. But that album, listening to that was like a religious experience almost.
The whole thing, straight through. We just went. And then when they started playing, because we were working at a Cub Scout camp, I don't know why people would put us with Cub Scout kids, and he was like one of the leaders.
Yeah.
He ran like arts and what did you run?
Cubcraft, which was like building fires and.
Of course.
Yeah. What else would it be, right?
But we would go there, and then we would go to like stretch shows constantly, and they got to know us. We'd drive out to Pennsylvania,
Long Island, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, all over God's creation in New Jersey.
Mm.
The guitarist was
I think we saw them
history teacher.
It was 11 times in 1 year.
Wow.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
But it's that same kind of sentiment of, which is kind of beer now.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell people. I could be completely wrong. This could be anecdotal, but I feel like there are less alcoholics and more beer connoisseurs now.
I'd say so.
The rebirth of the American beer industry after it got shot down after Prohibition, there were a lot of great breweries in America. Yeah. And Prohibition, obviously, they all went out of business. The bigger ones were able to stay afloat doing near beers, as they call it, or other products that they can use. But once Prohibition was the 21st Amendment repealed Prohibition, you were still stuck with those major brands that all suck, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Your Budweiser, that's the worst beer on the planet.
You remember Ballantine in Newark?
Ballantine. You have Pabst Blue Ribbon, which is
Miller.
It's
Coors,
just
like all
PBR and Budweiser. It's just fuel for domestic violence.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's asking you to drink a lot of it.
Yeah.
Well, and not happily.
But now, in the past 20 years, and more so the past 10 years, 5 years, the all these. I mean, and I have one with us. I bought a 6-pack now. One of our fellow Bergen Catholic graduates from the year after us, 2001, Olson. They started up a brewery. They contract with High Point in Butler, New Jersey. Bolero Snout, right, and their base of operation is out of Ridgefield Park.
Yeah.
So I brought one of theirs down here. The other beer I'm drinking I brought is my new favorite, and for those who are fans of the website The Chive, you've probably seen that they came out with their own beer. Through Resignation Brewery is their media company, and they contract with the Red Hook, and it's a black lager. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, KCCO is really good.
What do you think of it, Pat?
I've had it before. I think it's great. It's really good. And it's funny, black IPAs are really on the scene now, which I wasn't a fan of at first, but black IPAs have come a little bit further away too. And like going back to what you were saying too, I think it's definitely replaced for a lot of people music and going out, and especially because it's such an easy thing to get into, because if you have kids, you can stop into the bar. If you go into a barbecue, you saw it becomes just a community thing.
Well, just when you have a kid, don't stop at a bar.
Yeah, beer used to be a lower class type of beverage.
Sure.
It was mass consumption.
Yeah, the white trash, mass garbage product that was out there. Now it's turned into, it's like wine. There's all these fine wineries, and you go into a place like this place by me, Total Wine in River Edge,
which is massive now. It's ridiculous.
It's like the Alcoholics Home Depot, I call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their wine selection is it's unfathomable.
Yeah.
I look at it and I don't know wines. I like Malbec, and I just grab a Malbec that's like $6 and I'm happy. But it's like, wow. And then the beer selection. I love Belgians. Like, you guys are the IPA people. I'm a Belgian person.
I'm an everything guy.
I love Belgians.
I've gotten to like porters a little bit.
Well, through craft beer, I definitely like porters more.
Yeah.
I was supposed to bring it in. The Sweet Baby Jesus peanut butter porter.
Chocolate peanut butter porter, yeah.
Is
That's amazing that people do that with beer.
Yeah.
You know what I do is I'll always drink IPA, but I follow like Beer Advocate and what is it, Rate Beer?
Those two.
Yeah, Rate Beer, yeah.
The weird thing is, have you noticed that those two have started to split quite a bit in their opinions?
Because Heady Topper's 22 on Rate Beer.
But
whereas it's 1 with
I think
and it's
there's
always
some
been
people out there, the
Advocate.
hop heads out there, and you got a hops t-shirt on.
Yep.
They automatically, I think they're like prejudiced towards IPA sometimes.
You know what I think it is sometimes too is
it's like Starbucks coffee.
It is, but
which I had earlier today.
There's also guys that it's a measuring contest. Like, oh, I love this barrel aged stout because it's 11.1, and you can, which is all right.
Well, same thing with the IPAs. It's how many IBUs. This one's got 66,000 IBUs.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's true too.
Pure concentrated nastiness.
And I think if you look at most of the Rate Beer or most of the Beer Advocates, that's kind of where I get a little shaky with how they rate it, because it's all double IPAs or Imperial IPAs or IBUs.
How many IBUs? Oh, man.
I think it's 100 on the nose.
Really?
The chive.
It might be up. I mean, we could always definitely look it up.
Chive is 22, which is nothing.
But that's ultimately my problem with sometimes, and you go from craft beer advocate to a beer nerd, as some people would say, and it just gets way over the top.
You sap the joy from it.
Yeah.
You want a little bit of magic left in the things you like.
I've read in a couple of, it's funny, the beer publications,
75
if you will.
IBU.
There you go. Okay. So, but the taste tastes way more than.
I don't even get into IBU. That's the thing.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, that's
I don't
the
care.
weird part is.
I don't care.
I don't like when people get too deep into anything.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I am almost OCD deep into beer.
Sure.
Into podcasting, into devices like the iPhone and the iPad and all this. But when there's people who are north of me and crazy, I go, all right, that's too much. Because I feel I like the person who can take the things that people love and they love it enough that they can explain it to the common man.
Yeah.
I don't want the person who's, what's the Russell Crowe movie where it's like the perfect mind and they're hidden. They can't explain anything to the normal guy.
Absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of beer publications have talked about it is you have to imagine, and what they're saying is, look, you may have been where the beginner is at one point. So be nice to the beginner and bring them in slowly, and eventually it'll be all good. But I've sat down in my local place is the Copper Mine, and Vito just does a great job. 20 taps rotating. He's got the Beer Camp Across America tonight, all of them on tap. But I've sat down there some nights and I'll see a guy like asking around and stuff like that, but he'll shoot back a response at me. It's like, you probably don't even know beer that good anyway. I'm like, oh well, all right.
I don't want to know it. Like, this is supposed to be the thing.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Do I need to be like a PhD in
IBU?
Yeah. I like this, and that's that. And have you ever been to Andy's Corner Bar in Pagoda?
Yes.
That's crazy one. You bring your own pizza.
Phenomenal place.
Same thing. Copper Mine, same thing. Bring it whatever food you want. It's just
Andy's Corner Bar. It's not on the corner. He rotates. He's got like 10 taps and 2 cask pulls. And from Oktoberfest to Oktoberfest, he does the 100 Beer Club. It's called the Fraternal Order of Foam. And you have to drink 100 different beers in that time frame. He's got this 8.5, 11 double-sided manila card pre-printed with most of the stuff he has, and then blank spots to fill in. And it forces you to drink stuff you normally wouldn't drink.
Absolutely.
Because you're like, oh, I drink. And his kegs are rotating. And he gets stuff that other places can't get just because of he's known in that beer community.
Absolutely,
and everything. And actually, that beer, he's dead. Michael Jackson, the beer critic. Look it up. Michael Jackson,
Okay.
beer critic.
Wait, I know.
No, not Michael Jackson. Not that guy.
So you're telling me Michael Jackson was a big beer guy? That explains
Yes.
so much.
Exactly. Just Michael Jackson. But
There's so many Michael Jacksons. That's what is unbelievable. But continue.
There are a ton.
Andy's, I'm on the plaque for 2009.
Okay.
What happened, man? You dropped off. You're like the Chase Headley of
Yeah,
of
once
beer.
once you're on
You have the
the
1 year
Oh,
you
9.
lead. What was that? What was going on there? 115
Once you're on the
RBIs.
plaque, you don't like if you do it again in 2010, you don't go on the plaque again. It's just
That's a marketing gimmick. I'm sorry.
once you're on.
I would feel like the marketing gimmick if you went back on a plaque again. Because if you go like to Crab's Claw or what's the one place in Caldwell, Cloverleaf Tavern, they have their MBA program. But yeah, I mean, a ton of places run that.
Isn't the biggest issue actually if you go sober and then you're on the wall of foam or whatever?
You got to do 12 steps.
How about going from not drinking to being on the wall at Andy's?
Yeah.
That's true. Chris has a straight edge tattoo. He was one of the most intense straight edge guys, and we were both straight edge. That's something that's legit.
Yeah.
That you completely, it overtakes your being.
Yeah.
Where when you're straight edge, I felt like being straight edge as a high school kid was great
Mm-hmm.
because it kept you away. That's like a low-hanging fruit time where things can go really bad.
Oh, definitely. No doubt.
And you're like a high school teacher. You see that straight up.
I see it all the time, and I think even as I started teaching, because I was the same thing as you. I wasn't officially a straight edge kid, but between playing so much lacrosse and football, whether I was good at it or not, we were always going through practices and just exhausted. But you're right. I think back to those days, and I was so occupied and exhausted. I didn't have time to go out and do that kind of stuff. But
good at it or not, you were on.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Especially
where we were.
High school football team. That
in the century,
2000,
right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, I see it all the time. And then when I started getting early on in teaching, you started seeing what kids are doing to themselves.
It's awful. It's scary.
I mean, you figure nowadays kids in middle school are getting ripped and drunk and smoke
and they're not appreciating what that means.
But then when you get to college, it's like, oh, okay, I've been through the drinking, I've been through the weed. Let me see what the next step is, and it just gets really bad really fast, and it's disappointing, especially as someone that really wants to see younger people reach their fullest potential. That sometimes it blows your mind to see great kids go down that road, and hopefully they get through. You can't live their lives for them, but you hope at the back end that it's going to work out. But it is frightening to see what some kids make with choices, no doubt.
I felt it was really hard from being straight edge for as long as I was, and also I was vegetarian for 9 years too.
Yeah, Matt
Both
came
of those
over my
things.
house one day in high school, and I'm like, "What do you want to eat?" I got grass clippings, and I put Italian dressing on it for him as a joke.
That's definitely high school Chris.
No, that's
Kerrigan
always
right there.
Chris. That's not even high school Chris. But it's bizarre how humans work, how the human condition and psychology works. That we create this world where it's like, I'm straight edge. I'm not going to drink or do drugs. I'm vegetarian. I'm not going to touch an animal product that's vegan or whatever. And you build these up in your own mind. The rest of the world doesn't exist. If we were born, 500 years ago, 300 years ago, we can't be like, I'm straight edge.
Oh, forget it.
I'm
in
vegetarian.
many countries around the world, you couldn't do that.
No.
Whatever food you had, you have.
Yeah, you got to have it.
You better eat, because if you don't...
The reason the monks brew beer is because you had to drink beer because it was the only way to purify the water.
Yeah.
You couldn't drink water back then, but you fermented it, and the alcohol killed off all the nasties. They had to drink beer.
Sailors, too, on ships. You had to.
The rum, the British, they would cut it with rum.
Yep.
And the limeys, they'd cut it with rum, and that was your grog.
Yeah.
It was water and a little bit of rum. And they cut that back out in like the 1960s, I think, is when they finally gave that.
Because it would rot. You couldn't keep water potable.
Yeah.
Because if you put water in like their wooden holds in their ships, it would rot away. So in essence, they had to stay pretty lubricated, if you will, the entire voyage, whatever they took.
I read a book about running. I forget which running book it was, because I'm not sure if it was the 4-Minute Mile one, which is a really fascinating book, but it was about running and working out and how that all came to be and how people never really worked out. It wasn't like something you did.
Yeah.
And then like 100 years ago, when people would start running, people in the neighborhood would go, whoa, 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 what's this person doing? They're just like running. This is bizarre. What's going on?
Yeah.
But one of the earliest times where someone was paying attention to their health, it was like some kind of British sailor general or something, and he kept a log, and he was working out, he was doing his calisthenics and all this, and then he kept for his meal that he had like 2 pints of beer and mutton.
Oh my God.
And so it's funny, it's actually funny psychologically too with that we build up these things where it's like, all right, I'm going to start drinking on Thursday at 5:30. And how people all these years ago, they didn't even think about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that you're sitting there going, these people were waking up and drinking. It was just normal.
Oh, you go through history and the way people live their lives. It's wild. And then to put it to us nowadays in the modern world it's almost, we're in different universes.
We really are.
It's completely different.
I mean, we're going to talk about World War I. I was reading up a lot on that because I knew nothing about World War I, and I came across an article in The Economist. I try to read and listen to that each week, and it was in the book section. It was just a long article about all the books that were big time, like Barbara Tuchman's The Guns of August, which was a big one that JFK was really into.
Sure,
it was cool reading that because it was from like the 60s.
Yeah.
And looking back, in the World War I, that was a long time ago from the 60s, but now I'm listening to it 50 years later, and it's like a bizarre kind of place.
Sure.
But, you're kind of going through this, and they were saying that the soldiers, as part of their 70-pound packs they had to carry, they'd have whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
But it was like perfectly calibrated as to what they could have.
Mm-hmm.
And like they would check their whiskey levels every day to make sure they weren't having it. So it was like a really crazy thing. But maybe we should actually kind of go there.
Sure, yeah.
Real quick shout out. I just got a text message from my friends because I shared the link we posted.
Yeah. We look like
one of my friends he took a screenshot and he sent it to me and he said, "I see you." So shout out to my friend Eric listening from Virginia.
Virginia.
He's in the Army down there.
Oh, he's in the Army. Cool.
Nice.
I can't really tell. I'm looking at this. This is the first Google Hangout where I've done it and we promoted it before. I can't really tell if anybody's on or who's on. I guess the tree is falling in the forest. But the cool thing with Google Hangout is that they've built this whole thing. Like Google has so much money that they give so much away for free because they make so much money from advertising just on searches. They make a ton of money. They make almost, I don't know the number, but it's some ridiculous number like 75 or 80%. They make their profit on those ads that appear on Google search results along the right side.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely,
yeah.
So they fund things like Google Hangouts.
Yeah, but by people going to Google Hangout and all the free stuff they do offer, it brings people in.
Right. You could sell ads later. That's right. But they have this amazing interface where all we did was we hooked into my computer with a dinky little webcam, and it goes live, and then the minute we press stop, it renders it and sends it to a YouTube page, my YouTube page, for viewing on demand. It's like a crazy world. I like the idea of doing it live too.
Yeah.
Because it kind of changes the feeling of when you're doing it.
Definitely.
It's like a different feel. Although doing it here, like in a studio like this, it's not like you don't feel like you're doing it live. But sometimes when you do like with those little recorders, you're like, nobody's listening to this. I'm just talking into a recorder, and then I'm gonna put it up later. Like you have to fake yourself out.
Makes you realize your buddy in Virginia's even watching.
He is.
It's really cool.
I texted him. I said, "Shout out," and he said, "Oh shit," and then so he's gonna laugh again because I just mentioned it again. But
there you go.
No, Google just shut us down because you said shit. No, I'm kidding.
Shit. It's not good.
But so I'm listening to this article because The Economist. I made the decision years ago. Anybody who listens to this knows this.
Sure.
To consume. That's the word for it. Consume that publication. Because that is a beast.
Yeah.
You went to school in London, right?
I went to Oxford for a summer, yeah.
So The Economist, that's where they're based, and I like the fact that they're based there because I think the worldview from Britain is probably the best jumping off worldview to see the world. In many ways, America is not the best place to see the world. We're so big, we can only see ourselves.
Yeah, and a couple of things come to mind, especially World War I really hit the British. And the French, obviously, too.
But kind of fought in France, so yeah.
the British, though, because it was on their side of the world, and because obviously they speak the same language as us, it hit them so hard. And when you go over there, it's so much more about World War One than World War Two, than in the American experience. But it really brings it home because they were fighting it from day one. It was for everything going on. So when you do talk about World War One, when you speak about the British perspective, it's so much way more important for them than us. We kind of just showed up and it was like, hey, we'll help you guys out, and that was the end of the war.
Well, they were so torn.
Yeah.
Too. Like they didn't have to go in. They weren't really there was no peril to them as much as an overall
with
feeling.
The French specifically.
Yeah.
They were close.
Everything's so close.
World War One, they weren't being attacked directly like they were during World War Two, where you had the Battle of Britain, the Air War, and the V2 and the V1 rockets being launched. And it was a little more close. We have the luxury of having a few thousand miles of ocean between us.
Yeah,
that's one of our biggest
We are
advantages.
so lucky.
It's really unbelievable. And that's the other thing I was going to bring up too, was that even with modern day events, when you go to Britain and you're watching the BBC and they talk about Israel and Hamas and the rockets, that's in their backyard.
Yeah, it's not that far.
For us, Chris is absolutely right. It's oceans away, and the Pacific is an ocean away. So we sit pretty while the rest of the world kind of has to deal with everything on their side of the world.
Yeah, Europe is really just the United States of Europe. It's that close, I mean, you even look at the fact that part of the U.S. is Alaska. And have you ever seen the picture where Alaska is superimposed into the middle of the U.S. and it takes up almost the entire part?
It's ginormous.
Massive.
And then we got Hawaii randomly. Mm-hmm. We have all these things, but the thing with World War I is I took it as a challenge to myself. I heard this article, and it's the 100th anniversary. We're probably, 4 days away? We're doing this on July 24th?
Yeah.
We're 4 days away from basically the 100th anniversary of the start of
the assassination of Franz Ferdinand.
No, that was actually June. That was June 28th, and then it was
the
kind
declaration
of
of war on everybody, on each other. Real
ironically, because you had posted that before, and then this whole Malaysian Airlines thing happened over the Ukraine last week. You made the analogy: is this our Franz Ferdinand?
Yeah, and I love the fact this is what I'm not saying I'm smart, but this is what the kind of accumulation of knowledge and the attempt to get knowledge does.
Sure.
I listened to this article and I said to myself, they just did. Because I listen to The Economist and I read it, and it remembers where you are. It's almost like that Amazon Whisper Sync thing.
Sure.
And I'm hearing it, and I said to myself, this Economist article was talking about things as if you knew things that went on. I knew 0% about World War I.
Oh, wow.
I knew a certain amount from World War II. I was always a sports guy.
Sure.
So that was my news, and that was what I followed. I got so deep into that.
Sure, yeah.
When I worked at the Nets, when you're in sports and you're reading about sports, that's enough of your beat it's hard to get out.
Sure.
And then I remember there was one point when I was working at the Nets where I said to myself, I have to start reading the news. And so every day I started reading the actual New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
And then you slowly accumulate because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
The amount of world events going on and the history that's tied up into those world events. It's impossible to know it on day one. So you have to know, all right, I'm going to feel like an idiot today, the first day I read it. I'm going to feel like an idiot tomorrow. I'm going to feel like an idiot in 100 days. But if I keep doing it, the narrative is going to pick up. And I think that's hard. You're like a history teacher, right?
Yes, I am, yeah. Social studies, yeah.
That's the hard part because I feel as though I didn't learn a ton in high school. And that's not because I didn't have good teachers.
Sure.
It's because my mind wasn't ready
you want to take ownership
to
of
learn.
It.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing for when I teach my students is you want them to take ownership of the subject, to like it. As much as my personality can be dynamic and I can really bring it to them and I'll relate it to them, you want them to personally be invested in it. And even teaching World War I think the biggest thing is, and that was going to be kind of the crux of what I was going to say about World War I, is you can relate everything currently going on in this world to World War I. As crazy as that sounds, and as 100 years ago,
especially waiting a week like we did.
I mean, it really is amazing how we're still dealing with the ramifications of a war that happened 100 years ago. Between you want to bring up Israel, you want to bring up
ISIS.
Our world and our universe, ISIS, India, Pakistan.
Well, World War II happened because of what wasn't rectified after World War I.
Absolutely.
World War II ended, and then the Cold War started.
Yeah.
It was us and the Soviets.
Yeah.
And that's still going on today with this whole Ukraine thing.
Absolutely.
I almost get the feeling with World War I And again, I went from 0 to, I'm not going to say 60 because I am nowhere along. Even just trying to, I got the Whisper Sync of the Tuckman book, and I've been reading another book from Peter Hart, but it's almost too military-ish.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of war.
Yeah.
I mean, not that you guys are, but I feel like there's such a preponderance of study of war, and I almost think sometimes that's like counterintuitive and against how we really should focus on things. But it tells a lot about things, and it tells a lot of stories. But the thing with World War I that feels like it was almost the first time where the world was truly finally global, and it was the first time where people said, as if these countries were the children going to touch the stove to see if it's hot. Nobody had tried to globally go and try to dominate things, and all of the dominoes that fell into place because of World War I. And I felt like they went and touched it, and everything went wrong. And when things start going wrong, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, and then finishing up with World War I, the treaty.
Well, we're not finished.
I'm not saying finishing, but
I'm kidding.
with the end of World War I, you had the Treaty of Versailles, which put such horrible restrictions on Germany that it pissed off a lot of people. That one guy, Adolf, and he rose into power, and he's to vow vengeance against that treaty. And then look what happened with World War II, with the Third Reich and conquering all of Europe.
Oh, the unanswered questions really
them
gave
getting their asses kicked, America style.
Absolutely. Going to what you were saying, Matt, is the sense that there's a couple things you have to kind of understand about Europe at the time. The only time between Napoleon and World War I that they fought any sort of war were the Franco-Prussian War, and the Germans absolutely devastated the French to form the country of Germany.
Well, don't forget, Germany used to be all those little
Prussia and all the little states,
and those little states, and then they all finally united.
Yep, absolutely, and Prussia dominated Germany, and they formed France, or they formed Germany in France, in Versailles. It's a famous painting of all the Germans with their swords up in the Palace of Versailles. The thing I say to my kids, that's like a WWE move, where like they're celebrating, like we kicked their ass so bad, we formed our country in your seat of power, your symbolic place of power. At the same time, even going back to between Napoleon and World War I, you have to imagine the inventions that came along.
Oh yeah.
The machine gun was such a tremendous weapon. The problem that they had, and a lot of people don't mention this, is that
the machine gun forced trench warfare.
Absolutely, but what a lot of people don't understand is they used the machine gun on the Africans, the Indians, the cannons too, especially the British in India. The weapons that they had, as they were using them on the Indians and the Africans and everything, they were literally laughing at them, like, look how they just keep running at us.
Yeah, they just obliterated humankind.
But what they didn't realize is that was going to happen to them in the 1910s when World War I started, and they had no tactics to get around either.
They dug into the ground, and it was a stalemate.
Yeah, and then
they had to gas everyone because there's no way to.
They thought that, oh, these people are such savages. Look at how they're running at us with these machine guns, and they're just getting completely annihilated. But literally, what happens in Europe when they start World War I? The same thing, and they had no answer for it.
Yeah, because it's like a fight that didn't get figured out because there were so many pieces involved in World War I.
It's unbelievable.
Like trying to read about this.
It's such a heavy subject.
And then they start using the euphemism of theaters.
Yeah, absolutely. and you also start seeing, and that's where they start getting desperate, because now that they're in trench warfare, like Chris is talking about, now that they are shooting machine guns, they can't get out. They're shooting artillery. Now what do they start? Oh, what's that Let's try dropping artillery out of airplanes.
Airplanes originally were used for surveillance and
yes, they were.
Signal corps, where the Air Force today got its start from the U.S. Army Signal Corps. Tanks also got the
absolutely
start.
Tanks started appearing
George
too.
Patton was a big tank guy.
Sure.
And that's tanks, because you need how are you going to go against these machine guns?
Yeah.
Well, let's put
big armor and we'll roll them through there.
So tanks and machine guns, and that's what really started where that whole arms built
mechanized
up.
warfare, yeah. And to me, it watching some of the documentaries, for example, another weapon that we didn't bring up yet, as well as the flamethrower, is gas.
Yeah.
That the Germans, the first time they used gas in weaponized warfare, the Germans take gas canisters and they run out there and they throw the gas on the ground. They unlock it and they pull it out. The wind was blowing back at the Germans. So the gas came back at the Germans, and they get all like destroyed, gassed out on the one line.
Gas back then.
So now they're like, well, we have to shoot this over and bomb them and then release the gas. But everything was so primitive and so dirty and disgusting. And the metaphor that I really give my kids is you'll see a million World War II video games out there.
Yeah. It's awful.
You can't have a World War I video game.
I think it'd be boring as shit.
It would be the worst game ever. I tell them all the time. You would play it for 15 seconds.
It's like chess.
Whistle blows. Everyone goes out of the trench. They charge. Oh, they get shot with machine gun fire. Yeah. Game over. Continue. Okay.
Max of machine gun just mows you down.
Or gas.
Good old John Browning
brutal.
30 cal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I didn't get a chance to get deep into the Middle East part of it yet. So everything I've consumed in the last couple of months, as this came into consciousness, and I made the kind of I challenged myself to get up to date on this because it's absolutely fascinating and it teaches you a lot where you're reading about it and then something happens and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening when that just happened. Nobody reads history. No. Nobody pays attention to it. They just get through what happened the last 24 hours, the last year maybe.
Yeah.
Especially
and
now,
they move forward.
We know what's going on the other side of the world as it happens.
Instantaneously.
With Twitter and YouTube and everyone's walking around with my cell phone, my iPhone 5 has more computing power than the systems that took the Apollo missions to the moon.
Yeah,
in my fingertips.
I mean, look at what we're doing right now. I mean,
I have access in my
pocket
to unfathomable technologies.
Yeah.
And social media and news and feeds from as it's going on. People are live tweeting in the middle of that whole Islamic Spring thing, the
Arab Spring,
revolutions, yeah.
But back World War II, it took months.
Yeah.
Real quick, back down to the War of 1812, the Battle of Louisiana, the Battle of New Orleans.
The war was over.
The war was over.
The war was over.
Andrew Jackson, phenomenal battle. It was a strategic mastermind of a battle that didn't need to be fought because the war was already over. But it just took that long.
Right.
Now it'd be like Obama would tweet Putin and be like, yeah, war's over. Okay, cool. And it's over. And everyone would know. They get a notification on their iPhone. Eric would get a little thing and it goes off in his head, And then it took months, weeks to, ship sail across the ocean and toodly-doo the whole process then. It's amazing what technology and satellites
I'm like so fascinated by World War I because obviously we're looking at 100 years ago. It's close enough where it's somewhat akin to our time, but it's also on the precipice of the past, the legit past. And so you're seeing these technologies come up against old forms of warfare or old ways of thinking and destroying them across the board.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was one piece, and I want to work backwards after this, but there was one piece where I was listening to, and it was when the Germans, as part of the Schlieffen Plan, which I love that name, but they were like, all right, well, the only way we're going to be able to fight France is we have to go through Belgium. Sorry. And Belgium's like, no, we're neutral.
Yeah.
We're a neutral country.
Belgium, I feel sorry for Belgium. Because I really love the beers that they make. We discussed this before. I love Belgian ales, Belgian beers. Some phenomenal beers. Delirium Tremens. Anywho, Belgium is between France and Germany. World War I, Belgium got shit on. The poppies, the little poppies that you see around Memorial Day.
Sure.
The Flanders Field, that was in Belgium.
Sure.
World War II, the Battle of the Bulge, Bastogne, the 101st Airborne trapped in, I was just watching Patton the other day. Patton's Third Army comes into, turns around from fighting another offensive. Patton's like, yeah, I'll do it. Turns around in the middle of the winter, guys are tired, they're low, they're past their supply lines, and he just beasts it up and saves the embattled 101st.
Sure.
As from Band of Brothers. That was Patton's army that came in and bailed those guys out. It's all in Belgium.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the part that you're reading this, you're going, man, these little places really were the fire starters of World War I. But before we get to that, the part that intrigued me with this whole thing of the new technology is Germany was like, Belgium proclamation, we're coming through, and their expectation was they're not going to do anything to Belgium.
Yeah.
And so Germany
Belgium's
comes
like
through.
the size of Connecticut or some bullshit
and
like
Belgium Germany comes through, and Belgium's like, how dare you walk on our land when we're neutral just because you proclaim to us you're going to come? We are going to fight you. And they ended up being like the spokes when you're trying to get out of the parking garage in the wrong way and you wreck your tires. And so there was one point where it was like, all right, we have these forts, and the Germans were running up at the forts. And I'm sorry, I don't have the battle. There were so many notable battle names, but they're just machine gunning the Germans left and right. And like you were saying, more and more keep coming, more and more, and they're machine gunning them. And then eventually, the Germans were like, all right, let's bring the portable cannons. And they just took out the entire forts.
Yeah.
And so it was just this technological one-upsmanship where like the human dimension almost doesn't matter. And you look at these people, we think of our lives of how much we feel like we are these unique beings in the world. Imagine if we were sent into these lines. Like, what are these people doing? You must think about that all the time when you read the history and when you watch it. And
I can only imagine, especially you look at Saving Private Ryan, those guys.
Oh yeah.
They're on the Higgins boats storming. I can only imagine the fear. And you saw the guys that were just, I don't know if they were puking because of the
fear
ocean or their
sickness,
nerves, just the anxiety. And then that ramp went down on the boat and just the machine gun. That's got to be absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
Going into that situation.
And then they come out with video games of it, and then people are like, "Look at how real the video game is."
It definitely softens the effect that it has, because when Saving Private Ryan came out, I mean, that was
revolutionary.
When Saving Private Ryan came out, they had veterans of the D-Day
that couldn't watch it.
That they said this was as realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, that was dead on.
Some of them couldn't watch it.
Short of actually being there, that first 10 minutes of that movie, Steven Spielberg got that on unbelievably.
Sure.
I mean, I'll just watch the first 10 minutes of that just randomly.
Oh, we show it all the time. I mean, it really, Spielberg and D-Day, it's the perfect combination to show you what it's like.
And they've done a good job through movies, because unfortunately society's not going to read the books.
No.
And the books give you the most data on it, and they give you the most real storytelling of it.
But movies also give you that visual effect of what it looked like. And if you go to the movie theater, you get the sound system with the bass and the explosions and the surround sound where you get you hear the bullets whizzing past the right side, and just
But I feel like they leave and go to dinner. Yeah. And they're like, wow, that was crazy. I mean, we just don't learn from it. And I feel like some jerk off saying this, because I'm not some smart guy. I just happened to, in the last couple of months, start reading on World War I because we're the 100th anniversary. I put out a Facebook message. Pat answered it. I said, Chris can come on. Like, we're not some guys who are that far ahead. It didn't take me that much to get a little bit up to date.
No, not at all.
On what happened.
Especially like Chris said, nowadays you can look everything up.
I was Wikipedian. I sit at work. I bring my MacBook to work, and I got some downtime in between calls. And I'll sit and I was watching Patton on Netflix. I've seen the movie before, but I just felt like watching it again. And I sit on Wikipedia, and I watch. There's so much on YouTube.
Yeah.
Documentaries on this and documentaries on that. I just watch random shit.
Yeah.
And I'm a World War II person guy.
I think most people are.
Yeah, I think most.
But I think
people
it's
are.
good from what I did here, because I'm not either way. I just am not a huge word guy. I got into Band of Brothers probably 5 years ago, and that led me to. You use that to kind of get into it. And actually, an interesting thing, Andrew Pangert was on this podcast towards the beginning. He's an amazingly big gamer.
Okay.
And a lot of these games are war games.
Yeah.
He studies war stuff to help him with the game.
A lot of the kids.
That he learns it.
A lot of my kids are the same thing. It's very helpful because it brings awareness.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, World War II is the big gamer war. One of the things that I was going to mention is that when you really get down to it, the toughest part about teaching social studies nowadays, because we have such, like Chris was saying with his phone, everything's at your fingertips.
Yeah.
You have to almost slow people down, especially Facebook, social media, with the immediate reaction, because you don't know what this means yet.
Yeah.
You know, like Chris brought up your comment.
They need an answer now. They need a response now.
What does this mean in history?
Everyone's so impatient with everything.
Yeah.
Something happens, they immediately want an apology or a response or something. Like, it happened 13 seconds
Yeah.
ago. Like,
and
we're very impatient now.
Absolutely.
As a side result of having.
Yeah, and as an authority, a lot of kids in their lives, when something happens, it's like, oh, Mr. Newman, what's this mean? What's gonna happen?
I don't know
yet. And going to like what you're saying, World War I was 100 years ago. I feel like we still have no idea what the ramifications of World War I, and rightly so, World War II. We have no idea what it all truly means yet, because all these things really have to hammer themselves out.
In the grand scheme of things, 1945 wasn't that long ago.
Well, think about where we grew up. My great-grandfather was a World War I veteran.
Wow.
We know World War I veterans. Now, for this generation, first of all, by the way, I think it's this year, kids going into high school were not born before 9/11. So imagine that one.
Oh.
If you will, that's tremendous to think about because of how big that was in our lives.
Let me hit one thing on that. The interesting thing I heard today, because I want to get to the MH17 flight as it relates to World War I down the road. The amount of Dutch folks who died on that plane were more in an equivalent percentage point of view than the amount of Americans who died in the World Trade Center.
Wow.
So that's how big that is.
That's it's tremendous. Oh, well, I mean, I think we'll definitely bring up how unbelievable that is.
I'm coming to terms with that so bad.
I think everybody is. I mean, again, it's another one of those events where everybody wants an answer. What does it mean? What's going to happen?
Could you
we
imagine
just don't know yet.
9/11 was 13 years ago.
Yeah.
If we had iPhones, Twitter, Facebook,
it'd be awful.
YouTube.
Thank God we didn't.
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah.
Those poor people would have just been lighting up, doing videos.
Texts, yeah.
Although people have gotten ugly. Did you see the girl who did the selfie at Auschwitz?
No. And I've been to Auschwitz. I can't even imagine.
I've been to the one outside of Munich. It's at
Dachau. Yeah, Dachau.
It blows your mind.
This
is a facility that is set up right outside. I mean, at least Dachau.
Yeah.
It was right outside of a suburban.
Yep.
Atmosphere
Dachau's a weird
just
one,
like Ridgewood. It looked like I was in Ridgewood.
Dachau's a weird one because it's almost like even like driving through up here, where you live and everything. It's like you're going along. Oh, here's a store. Here's a traffic light. Oh, here's a concentration camp.
Dachau.
It's bizarro.
Dachau's
a
Band of Brothers
one,
after the war was over and they were an occupying force. Remember that one scene it was like the second to last episode or last episode, and they're like,
what is this place?
You gotta see what we found.
Yeah,
right.
We found this place on patrol, and that they go through this, and they were nauseated. Some of them vomiting, witnessing this, and it was very sad when they're going in, and the prisoners that were in there weakened. I mean, nothing left of them.
Yeah.
They just go up and he just hugs the one American soldier. I just gotta imagine just seeing it, but having smelt death. As a side of affecting my job.
Yeah.
The smell that must have came from that.
Sure.
It just, that whole 5 cents.
Yeah. I mean, I went to Auschwitz as a high school kid, and it's funny because whenever somebody finds out I've been to Auschwitz, I'm the big get, like, oh, we got to have Mr. Newman come in and talk about what it was like. And you go through it, and I went as a high school senior. You go through it, and it's like, okay, here's this stuff. Okay, this is where people were executed. But as you're going through the museums and the storehouses, it gets a little bit real when you turn the corner, and now there's literally a room that's probably 50 feet by, 20 feet deep of human hair.
Yeah.
That the Germans cut off, people's heads to stuff pillows of all things.
Yeah, to stuff pillows.
And
pillows,
then
VW cars, they use it.
Yeah, across the board. And then the other side, when you go, and this one really affected me more because I knew about the hair room. I knew about that. I knew it was coming, but it still takes you back. The one room you go into is now eyeglasses, just tons and tons of eyeglasses. And then the real one that gets you is the fake limbs. That literally they were taking fake limbs that their plan was to give them to German, supposedly German soldiers that were amputated and things like that. But I mean, when you think about someone taking away someone's a fake limb and then execute them, I mean, you're literally
distributing them to society.
You're literally pulling off someone's leg to give to somebody else, or supposedly give to someone else. But
Think about the dignity we have for ourselves.
It's unbelievable to really think that there was an active soldier or SS guy, whoever you want to say it is, but they're pulling off somebody's actual limb. I mean, at that point, it's your limb.
And didn't they pull out teeth too? And do all
jewelry, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Weird experiments on the less desirables of society, as they call them. Also, the Japanese did it too. It was some secret camp. I forget the name of it, Secret Camp 17 or something like that, where they did all sorts of. In medicine now, with cardiac arrest and strokes, they're inducing hypothermia. It slows down metabolism and allows the body to recuperate a little bit better. We actually do it in the field. A lot of research was done by the Japanese on that. That secret camp, and it was their Dr. Mengele was the German doctor, whatever the doctor in Japan was. We took a lot of that data and research. I mean, it wound up being a lot of good research, but done very inhumanely. These people were just tortured, and a lot of it was on the Koreans.
Sure.
The Koreans hate the Japanese to this day.
Absolutely.
The Koreans hate the Japanese because the atrocities that the Japanese, Korea. And I was just watching something on Korea the other day too. It was in the middle of China and Japan, and those two countries were always going at it. And
yes, they are.
Who are they going to go to get between the two? Korea.
Yep.
And there was another country that post World War II, the Japan owned Korea during World War II. Afterwards, we said, okay, the 38th parallel, the North would be managed by Russia, the South would be managed by the United States. And then that was another battleground of the Cold War.
Look how the South did. Yeah. Sam's, they have like every major brand.
Well, that's because they just pump their money, but in essence, our money.
That's a lot of America. But that's fine. I have no problem with us supporting, South Korea.
You can see an A/B test. Like we always talk about A/B testing.
It really is.
The web. You look at North and South, and it's the most stark, obvious thing you've ever seen.
Back to my friend Eric, if he's still watching. He was over in Korea. He was stationed there for a little while once he was commissioned, and he was there, and he was up by the border, and it's the north side is just this like empty, barren wasteland.
Yeah.
The South is a thriving country.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
It's a 51st state.
Yeah.
And how goddamn lucky are we? Like, we go on about our lives.
Not worrying that
biggest
that
care
there's
in
a
the
standing
world.
army of tens of thousands of people standing, 30 miles from the border, ready to invade
with nukes.
Yeah.
But how about being in it? Like that's why sometimes
who's going to invade us? The Canadians? What are they going to come down and throw hockey sticks and drown us with maple syrup?
We're also too big to invade.
Yeah.
Where are you invading?
Yeah.
I mean, we have the luck of geography to such a degree, but I often feel the more you learn, the worse you are.
Yeah.
Because you consume and subsume all of these awful experiences.
Yeah.
And you come out of it just going, like you want to throw up.
Yeah.
You're disgusted by all the stuff that's going on out there, and that just by a luck of, how you were born, we grew up in a great place. Anywhere you pretty much grow up in this country, you are in good shape.
Yeah.
And we play with politics, we play with all this stuff, but we are so lucky that our biggest worry is that we're going to be late for a meeting tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Or that,
absolutely,
we're not going to make this dinner, or that this person didn't respond to our text in time. I mean, people, the other crazy thing is you look at Syria and you go back to Assyria or whatever, back in World War I times. Syria's had like 150,000 people.
It's
destroyed.
It's unbelievable.
Like what, 7-8 million refugees around the world from all these wars?
Oh yeah.
We are so lucky.
And
that's why that's why this stuff needs to be talked about better.
Yeah.
And we need to not be so deep into our own country because
there's still things in our own country that aren't all hunky dory. Detroit.
No, sure.
Yeah, they're awful. Yeah.
Detroit's like a war zone.
It is, but there at least is the chance of a platform to make better. Dan Gilbert
you could move out of Detroit.
Yeah, and Dan Gilbert.
As much as hard as it would be for a lot of people that live in Detroit,
you can freely move to another part of this great country,
or even their state.
And also, Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavs, is a huge guy in
yes, I've
Detroit,
heard that. Yeah.
And he's got Quicken Loans based there.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to build up from the rubble because the one thing about
the government's not helping, and I'm talking about the municipal government in Detroit, is useless.
Sure.
They're the ones that allowed it to happen. and they're not any help. So you need this private enterprise to come into Detroit, dump money into it, and build it up, like you said.
But the hard part with that though is that like you almost can't blame fully municipal government for the fact that Detroit used to be a place of 2 million inhabitants, and now what are there 600,000?
Yeah,
because there was major business
companies
there.
left. I mean, that's the
Companies
bottom
left.
line. I mean, you have to agree with that.
And so they're actually
the automobile industry was.
How about the fact that they're destroying homes and putting back up natural habitat?
It's on. It really.
That's amazing.
Houses get burnt down, and I followed some of the Detroit Fire Department's understaffed. They're cutting guys. They're cutting their butts. Their equipment's falling apart. They don't even have the manpower to investigate blatant arsons.
Yeah.
Their fire prevention, the fire investigation bureau is just overtaxed. Unless it's like they don't even have the manpower or the ability to prosecute anything. A house will burn down, and then later in the day they're back at the same house, and they don't even have. They just stand outside with the hose and they're not going inside to you know, and nor would you in an abandoned structure because it's from the firematic approach it's unsafe, and there's nothing really to save it because people are intentionally burning these down, and then the land, the wildlife and vegetation just reclaims it. And
how about whenever you watch a show? Like watch it like a even like a Pawn Stars or the one comes to mind is the it was about like meter maids and stuff like that, like street tickets and whatever it is. Whenever they shift to Detroit, how much more depressing and awful does that show get? I mean,
Detroit is pretty.
When they move a show to Detroit, that show is just brutally awful because you just see stuff you don't think that even happens in America.
Do you guys remember a couple of years ago? When all the Time Inc. Well, now it's Time Inc. It used to be Time Warner, but Time Inc. spun off from Time Warner. All the Time magazines, like Time, Sports Illustrated, they had like set up people to live in Detroit and report from it, and then there's never been anything else.
No, yeah, that's what happens in a lot of places. They try, but just it's so the solution is just so. What do you do?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to fill the 2 million range, but you got to figure out where your new number is. And the one thing about cities like that, and this is the same as Newark in New Jersey, or a lot of these cities that were great in New York State that were along the Erie Canal, these cities have the infrastructure of once great cities.
The Rust Belt.
So if you come in and you decide to move your company there, and a lot of times you move your companies there and you get tax incentives and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got everything thrown at you.
You have the infrastructure of a once great city, and you can live in mansions because, especially these towns along New York State or even Detroit, there are mansions there.
Yeah. And
so you could live in mansions for a lesser price, and you can have the infrastructure of a once great city, and the government wants to build it up, so they'll outfit it with broadband and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you decide to almost be a wildcatter, if you think of Detroit as if a gold miner thought of going to Alaska, if you think of the gold being in the broadband and the fact that you can have cheap living expenses and a real city infrastructure, there is stuff there. There's always a story to come back up.
Yeah.
And it's
not far from here, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution in the United States.
Good old Patterson.
It's a shithole now.
Yeah.
There's shootings there every day. It's the hotbed of the heroin overdose in North Jersey. I see it firsthand. But it was a great industrial city. The silk factories and Alexander Hamilton's project with the falls and creating energy with that way and to get the power of the mills and everything like that. Yeah. And now you look at same thing with Newark, Patterson, Camden. The home of Campbell's Soup.
They don't even have a police force anymore, right?
It's a regional police force.
Unbelievable.
It's a county police force. Campbell's Soup, RCA was in Camden.
Yeah.
The New York Shipbuilding Company, I don't know what the figure is.
It's the Hoboken of Philadelphia.
A lot.
Bigger at one time.
Yeah.
A lot of the United States naval vessels built in the World War II era were built in Camden.
Yeah.
Including the USS New Jersey, which now sits in Camden.
Sure.
The New York Shipbuilding Company, huge, massive. I mean, these shipyards that were just turning out 24 hours, 7 days a week. Machines of war to and now look at what's left of Camden. It's a shell of misery. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And my girlfriend taught this past year in Trenton.
Another shithole.
And it really is unbelievable. I mean, I almost wonder how many New Jersey residents have been to Trenton. because
I've been
Trenton
through it, and let me tell you,
it's
Sure.
unbelievable.
Do you guys ever, when you go on vacation to different areas, do you ever go through their cities and just get saddened? Because you go,
It depends.
look at the poverty. Look at the poverty here. Like, you ever drive through Pennsylvania and you drive through parts of Allentown or all this, and you go, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to sound like a racist or an elitist or anything, but you sit there and go, oh my gosh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, what hope do they have to leave this place? At least here, or closer in towards New York City, you can say, well, we can get the contact high of New York
Sure.
City.
Yeah.
When you get out there, it's not only hopeless where they are, but it's hopeless because there's no economic engine.
You can't even go to the shore. You can't even go to the beach.
Yeah. That always shocked me when the people go to the beach, by the way, from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Our shore is their shore.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, Wildwood is the Jersey Shore of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia.
It is.
You ever go down there, it's all Philly plates.
Yeah, that's where we go every year.
Yeah, you go through some you go through some cities, and it really is, unbelievable. I'm going out west west coming up in a couple months, but I'm really interested to see like Seattle, Portland, and those areas out there. Yeah,
Seattle's
that's definitely
great.
True.
Bring a raincoat and your Starbucks card.
Seattle's really fun.
I was in Southern California December, like I was saying before to you guys, but it's weird because, and now Europe is, we can actually bring it back to World War II and World War I here. Those are places that have had a better opportunity because recently there was nothing there, and now they could build new infrastructure. Whereas where we live here, the infrastructure is established. It's hard to build new stuff. It's hard to, run lines with unions and working and it's
never
funny.
Fun to repair. There's never the politician. They can't cut the ribbon on a repair. They can only cut the ribbon on something
new. And I think it's funny because a lot of people, when they do come here from other parts of the country, they talk about how we still have telephone poles, where a lot of people don't have
newer developments.
Are they underground?
It's all underground.
It's all underground.
Didn't you guys think about that in Sandy?
Yeah.
How ridiculous it is.
That's what everybody says.
That we're laid low because we have telephone poles that are in just the insanity of that. That thing scared the living F out of me.
Yeah.
It's just
we got crippled by a Category 1 storm.
Actually, by the time it hit us, I think
it wasn't
down,
even, right?
It was down to a tropical storm.
Yeah, tropical depression or
That's scary because it was pretty big. I was looking up at the trees here. I was scared shitless.
Unbelievable.
We're fortunate where we live. The Jersey Shore got rocked.
Yes.
It was a tidal surge, and it was the water that just came in and just.
It's like the Tommy Boy thing. I think it was Tommy Boy. No, you don't. He's like, my face really hurts.
Not so much here.
Not so much here or
right
here,
but right
here. No, I don't see anything.
After he whacked him in the head with a 2x4.
It was like that band.
No, and even more to go. Even I've been doing internet classes the last couple of weeks to get more credits for to be frank, to get a higher salary right now. Up on the guide. But literally, I had a kind of a oh my God, holy F moment where I'm doing a class on terrorism, and here's my girlfriend like watching the Kardashians, and it's like they are making drama about absolutely nothing.
I can't watch any reality TV
like,
show.
Absolutely not a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
And here I am, here I'm like you brought up Syria. Here I am talking about
and you're
Hamas.
Destroyed by it.
And it's just like, what do we have to worry about compared to these people?
We're destroyed by it.
And like you said too, and as much as Detroit and a lot of interstates, and of course we have our problems. There's no doubt the United States has our problems. But something I heard on the radio the other day, when you get on a bus in Israel, it's not like you're skydiving. Like, because when you get a bus in Israel, it's like you're skydiving. Like, I might make it. This is kind of a risk. I'm getting on a public bus. Meanwhile, here it's like, what time I get there? This bus driver.
This son of a bitch bus driver is going the wrong way.
Yeah.
The last time I was on a bus, the wheel fell off. But
besides the fact,
it was a jitney.
But meanwhile, you're not looking at the next stop. Like, all right, that guy there, he might bomb this whole entire
that other bus
goddamn
might
thing.
Be, blown up.
Yeah.
It's a different atmosphere of living.
And isn't it amazing how big our country is that there's not more terrorism than there is? Like, are terrorists just not thinking, or are we doing that well with our government?
And this brings it up. recall this incident? Was it yesterday or the day before? The flags on the Brooklyn Bridge?
Yes.
What the fuck was that all about?
I don't know. I saw something on BBC.
Was that some sort of V for Vendetta type of
I heard
statement?
a rumor about it. It was a weird one, but somebody said, it was actually on I guess they call it Opie and Jim now, on their show. Someone said that it might be the idea that somebody climbed to the top and the flags weren't white, but they were faded American flags.
They were bleached American flags.
And that they only had 48 states on them because that symbolically represents before there was a state of Israel. Which sounds like but in essence, it's a protest against the United States' support of Israel.
Isn't that amazing?
But again, now going back to what I said before,
a lot of like, well, if then
what if?
divide by
But going back to what I said before, we want an instant reaction, like what the hell was that about? But we kind of have to wait it out. As much as that hurts and as much as that sucks to say, and especially in the 24-hour news cycle, we would hope we would know something about it. Considering also going back to the flight going down, how much we know already. But at the same time, we still, all right, who's the crazy a-holes that put that up there? They have the footage. They have to investigate. Somebody will find out because somebody probably posted on Facebook. Somebody tweeted out, oh, look what we did on the Brooklyn Bridge. But at the same time, we still have to kind of wait because it's been so recent about it.
Well, and I want to get to that, but before
hold on, just to blow that out of the water, the last state admitted to the Union. So if you're going back to the 48-star flag, so that was before Hawaii and Alaska.
Sure.
Hawaii was admitted to the Union in 1959.
Have you guys been to
Alaska?
Hawaii?
No, I want to.
No, my girlfriend. That's.
I've been there.
Alaska was admitted in.
Unbelievable.
You're there, and you're just like, how is this the United States? Nothing against it. Nothing against Hawaii or the United States of America.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you flew to Samoa.
Yeah.
And then they said this is the U.S.
Yeah, this is
Welcome.
still the U.S.
Yeah.
Here's your lei.
Alaska was admitted to the Union in.
It's around the same
1959.
Time. Yeah,
it was the same year.
Yeah.
Israel was a state in like 1947.
That's what I'm saying. But before
that analogy makes no sense.
No, it does because they're saying that this was the United States when Israel was formed.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying to you.
So the most interesting things for me about World War I think I don't love the battle stuff as much because it's almost very akin to sports, and I don't mean it because that way, like, sports is, as Mike Francesa says, it's the toy department of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But in sports, we've come to the point where we almost appreciate the non-game stuff as opposed to the game stuff.
Oh, absolutely. In this day and age, absolutely.
It's all like the off-season gets a bigger hit, the trade rumors, all that stuff
Especially
gets a
the
bigger hit.
NBA. I think the NBA is more popular in the summer than it is during the season.
It's turned into the LeBron James show.
Well, not even that. It really is, and you follow the NBA way more than I do, but you hear more about the NBA in June, July, and August than you do the entire.
I really could give two shits about the NBA. I'm not a basketball fan, but I am a huge hockey fan.
Sure.
And after the Stanley Cup Finals was over, it was all these unrestricted free agents.
Mm-hmm.
Who's signing with who, and who's this, and who's going where, and
they always stay home.
I can relate it to the NHL. But yeah, it's the big buzz, and I follow a lot of Twitter, Facebook groups, and various blogs on the Devils.
Sure.
And it's the off season, like Martin Brodeur.
Yeah.
He's an unrestricted free agent. He's unsigned right now.
Oh, and his two kids are on the Devils, right?
They're both Well,
I always say he's got to pay that divorce money, so he needs that contract.
Well, don't
somewhere.
go sleeping with other people's wives.
Your
sisters' wives. Ooh, that was.
These players get enough women. Why do they have to go there?
There's his wife's sister-in-law.
Does that mean he's a good guy because he's not going outside?
I mean, Marty's a saint in my mind, but Jesus, Marty.
Marty's the he's the Mariano Rivera.
I mean, maybe even more than that. If Mariano was a starter,
he meant more. Yeah.
I mean, he's the guy.
See, Devils fans never like him.
Who?
You're like sighing about him.
Brodeur?
Yeah.
Oh, he loves.
Oh, I'm not. I'm
sighing
about
about
him.
You were sighing about him.
No,
I was sighing about his
personal life.
Okay, but people don't care. That's the funny part.
Shit
like World War I.
Shit happens.
Fucking Bill Clinton and finger blasting.
Did you see Bill Clinton? By the way, page 6. Who knows if page 6 is right ever? But he has a woman on the side again who comes to his house and she's called Energizer.
Yeah, we're gonna put that back in the White House.
Hillary Clinton was your wife, would you not?
No, but stop. People say that, but you married her Like, there's something to me about marriage. If you marry someone, all these political people live such phony lives.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
We're like, I wouldn't want to be a politician if you told me I
do
was
we have
gonna
another
be elected.
5 hours for this subject?
Yeah.
We could be here
we don't have to go
forever,
crazy there, but I don't need to. I would not want to be a politician.
No.
Everything you read about it, everything you hear about it,
it's the
every
worst.
TV show you watch about
it. We need to have
it.
term limits again for congressmen and senators, because being a politician was originally you do it for a term or two. You do your service, and you go back to being what you were.
Yeah.
Now it's turned into a career.
Yeah.
Like Chuck Schumer.
And you get a pension from it.
Yeah. Fucking unbelievable.
Oh, he's the worst.
They're career politicians. It used to be you went, you served your community, you represented, and you came back.
It's unbelievable.
Wall Street and Washington need to be made boring.
Yeah.
Both of them. Yeah. They're both outsized. They don't add anything to the economy. They take away from it. Like, we need to get to a place where people actually do things. Can you imagine in the world where we talked about all the inborn advantages we have as a country, not being bothered by war? People have to send a telegraph if they're going to come do something else. And then if they come up on, like, Maine, half the country is going to go, what?
Well, a lot of times my friends and I, we get into this type of discussion. And one of the things I say is it really is a testament to how strong and how powerful America is, because we can have these jabronis and these jackasses be our leaders.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really look at who our leaders have been.
Elliot Spitzer.
The last 20 years. And
because they passed some kind of purity test.
Oh, my God. But the fact that we still are on top of the world, not necessarily because of their leadership, but in spite of who we are economically, new idea-wise, technology-wise.
We have a good platform.
I mean, we are that lucky that we can have these just complete jackasses.
All these companies
and at the same time, when you look at other countries' politicians, you know, Putin is a dirtbag. But Putin runs that country.
He's a leader.
He's an absolutely leader, and
you see him with his shirt off, hunting and doing this.
But I don't think that's good. Putin's an ass.
But he will make a decision. And
then you look at the picture of Obama riding a bicycle
stop with Obama
in his dad jeans.
He can make,
he looks like a tool bag.
Putin can make a decision because he has oligarchs at the end of a gun. Like, but and China can authoritarianism. They can make decisions which are good, but they've also put themselves into a place where they can have their own financial crisis because they're like, okay, we make the decision. We make the decision. We make the decision that we can build a city.
Yeah.
While you're building the city, it's great because everyone's got jobs, everyone's got this, but the minute the city's done,
we don't have anybody to move in here.
We're 1,000 miles away from the nearest place. So
look at Beijing after the Olympics.
It's crap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Nobody has the right system, and I don't think I give credit to the fact that any president would even want this job because it's gotten so awful, and that's such a sad statement.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be awful.
Yeah.
It should be. You should be able to preside over the fact that we can create Google, Facebook, General Electric, all the car companies we've made, Amazon, Microsoft, like all across our country, we have pockets where they've created amazing companies and innovations.
While we have these supposed politicians as our leaders, I almost feel like we have success in lieu of their supposed leadership. I mean, I know where Chris stands with Obama.
Yeah,
I think it's so tough because I think I personally believed in the change he would bring.
Me too.
But
was it unfair to think it? Could anybody do that with this system in place?
But it's the way you bought into and you wanted to change. And if there was ever going to be someone in recent history,
good line and
didn't follow through. And I think that goes with even the most diehard.
Will history look good upon him though?
I don't. It's so tough to say. But
universal health care.
You have
to
wait on it.
People were looking at that for 100 years. We're looking at World War I now.
Obamacare is not universal health care.
Yeah.
It's not yet, but it has principles in place that could lead to it.
It might start us towards
Nobody was allowing universal health care. So you did what you can do.
And when you look at like Roosevelt gets one of the biggest pass in history because
Teddy or Franklin?
Franklin.
Yeah.
Because the New Deal didn't, in essence, necessarily work out because World War II, like Chris just said, so much government spending.
Yeah.
Everybody got jobs
the New
because
Deal,
you build everything else.
Civilian Conservation Corps and all that stuff, like Bear Mountain, Harriman Mountain, all that was built with the CC and all those great work projects and everything like that. He was one of the biggest social.
That's China, by the way. That's building the city.
Yeah.
He
was one of the big
social. I'm not a big believer in China.
I'm not either.
I like their food, but that's about it. He was one of the big socialist presidents and leaders we ever had, like ultra liberal.
Yeah.
But his leadership during World War II was it was what we needed as far as during World War II. He was a great wartime leader. He served 4 terms, 3 and change. But he was a great wartime leader. So a lot of his socialist...
It's a duality of a presidency.
Yes.
It's a duality.
And narrative changes when you can rewrite it years later, too.
But what you can say is when faced with economic depression, and not necessarily depression, Chris is showing me a picture of Obama on a bike. He's a geek. I mean, he's a geeky, nerdy guy.
Like, I like a guy who can go play pickup basketball with people and throw a few elbows. I like it. I like what he has to say.
But what I was going to say with Roosevelt in regards to Obama is where Obama said change, change, change. Roosevelt at least went out there
and did something
and did the change. Now, whether or not it was going to work out is one thing. That's fine, and it's unfair because World War II kind of changed the whole situation of the
different
spending and everything else.
It was a completely different.
Because don't you think
but
sometimes...
at least Roosevelt felt confident enough in what his actions were.
He also was coming out of the Great Depression.
Absolutely.
Well, we're coming out of the Great Recession. I mean, we're pretty close. So, by the way,
the Great Recession was nothing.
It was pretty bad, and a lot of it's not come back.
I mean,
but the one thing I will say,
and I mean, it was a different.
Oh yeah, no, it's different. We have different things in place, and a lot of people learned from the Great Depression to not allow it to happen again, which a lot
of those programs were Roosevelt,
which a lot of conservatives were against.
Yeah.
But Obama, the one thing I will say is when he leaves, the narrative. Look at how the narrative's changed on George Bush. You notice all the people coming out and saying, he wasn't that terrible. When you don't have a girlfriend, the girlfriends you had before look a lot better.
Yeah. When
you're single, they look a lot better. Mm-hmm. Obama with history is going to look very good because you're going to look at a guy who came in and what was the unemployment? 9+%? Was that possible?
It was up there.
And isn't it 6.1 now? I mean, it's close to where it's moving down. And I know people are going to say, well, there's this percentage of people who have just left the work market, and where are they? And I don't want to get political, but I'm just saying, I think history is going to look different on him than right now. I think he's almost like one of those managers or football coaches or whatever who, when they're in it, they're not fiery, they're not this, they're not that, like Tom Coughlin or something, where they bumble into a couple of championships and all of a sudden it's like, okay, he was a smart guy though. He's not a dumb guy. I like how much Obama
unemployment
reads and knows. 6.1. Yeah.
But still, it did get lower. It
dropped 3%.
When did he take office? Was it 2008?
2008.
2008 when he took office, it was 5.0.
No, it wasn't.
I'm at the Bureau.
No, look 2009. Look 2009.
I'm at the Bureau of Labor.
Yeah, 2009. because it was 2008, and then you'd have to look 2009.
2009.
Look where it went over
7.8.
Yeah. Okay. Well, still 7.8 to 6.1.
That's a big difference. Because what do people want? What do they want? 3? No, it's never been.
It's never going to.
First off, the unemployment rate's not the unemployment rate.
It's fake.
It's just
it's
fictitious number of imaginary numbers. It's not.
All of it is politicized.
I mean, we could go Mr. Roberson right away and do House Stats Live. I mean, we could do that.
Mr. Roberson.
Which is a great House Stats. But House Stats Live is a great book because you could fix any stat. But with the Obama administration, unfortunately, I think the big symbolic thing for me with Obama, and I always argue with people, is that I'm closing Guantanamo. Guantanamo's going to close.
And then he realized
why it
was there.
Yeah, then you saw the realization behind it. And a lot of times it's very easy to say
from the outside.
Change, and I'm going to close.
And how about a guy who never ran things too? Roosevelt was a governor, right?
Governor of the state of New York.
Governor of New York, and he was also Secretary of Navy, I believe, as well.
So there's a certain.
Regardless, he ran.
Theodore Roosevelt was Assistant Secretary of the Navy leading up to World War I. Spanish-American War, and then he stepped down from that.
Went to Rough Riders.
Yeah. Obama, he went from being a community leader, which is just a
stop with the quotes. Stop with the air quotes.
It's a glorified title for bullshit artists.
Yeah.
It's not a real fucking
What do we
job.
do? This guy ascended to be the leader of the free world. There has to be some credit for that.
He was a state senator Then he was.
I mean, you want to put it down real easy? Great speaker.
Great speaker.
And
that's
he was a great speaker in a media, in the media world.
When people were ready for it.
And
I'm not saying Obama is Hitler, because.
No.
And by the way, did anybody see?
You know who else was a great speaker in a media-driven environment? Hitler.
Yeah.
That's how he got into power.
But let's calm down with that. Did anyone see the Mitt Romney documentary on Netflix?
I've heard it. I've always meant to see it.
I think all these guys, when they get to the point, they're 1 or 2 steps away from each other.
Yeah.
They're not that far away from each other.
Oh, you look at the political spectrum, forget it.
I watched that documentary.
They're so close.
Everybody's right.
Absolutely.
I watched that documentary, and I said, and who knows if that documentary was set up to make me like him, but it started in 2006 when he ran the last time.
Yeah.
And it followed him all the way through he lost.
I've heard it's great.
A legit guy. Phenomenal documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow Netflix got it on their own thing. Great job.
Yeah.
I would not have been unhappy with that person being in charge. They're all caricatures.
Yes.
I am not unhappy with who Obama is.
Yeah.
Or President Obama. I don't, I think history is going to look differently on him when you've had time. You never know. Look at the people who were like, Clinton's great. Clinton's good. In the moment, Clinton took down the Glass-Steagall Act.
Well,
he ruined the church and state line between retail and
you can give the metaphor as a surfer. Clinton was on the wave that was just going to go, and whoever was there at the time was going to make out great.
You're never going to be like, it's like being the Jets head coach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if you want to get down to it, and you want to talk about history, and looking at history, how do we know people? We know people maybe for like a 2-sentence blurb of what represented 8 years as him as president. Because you're right, at the end of it all, in 50 years' time, or probably long after we're dead, Barack Obama may go down as the 2-sentence blurb, started socialized healthcare in the United States, now everyone else healthcare, ... And that may be his legacy.
Down the lowest it's been since that period of time. You never know where things go.
Yeah, and you're right. Bush looks, especially. I always felt like, and I voted for Bush twice. Bush, you kind of knew what you had when you saw him, but when he got out of office, it was very interesting to hear. I always bring this up, especially with my kids with 9/11, because now, of course, like we talked about, they don't know anything about 9/11, but. To all the conspiracy theorists that 9/11 was an inside job, the government knew everything was going on. Oh, that's fine, but when you watch the National Geographic special and they interview Bush, to hear the president going, "We didn't know what the hell was going on," and then Dick Cheney gets on again. You may say Dick Cheney's the biggest liar in the world. That's fine. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But when they go, when we went to the Pentagon the day after to go check out everything and we were looking over our heads, not knowing, maybe something else is coming on, and it really kind of was an eye-opening moment because it humanized Bush. Where even if you're the biggest conservative and you believe in Bush and the war is just, whatever you want to believe, but that really humanized them because it was no one knew what the hell was going on. I mean, and
you see the video of when he was in that school doing that book reading or whatever. And the guy comes up to him.
You couldn't be the best actor in the world.
He just paused for a second.
Yeah.
You're like shocked. You're blown away by it.
Yeah, what do you do?
I was in New York City on the day of 9/11.
9/11?
Yeah. I walked out of the train station because I went to NYU. And I walked out at about 10 to 9, the first plane time. And I walked out and I heard a plane flying low as if a garbage truck was outside your house in the middle of the night.
Wow.
When you hear it, that drops down. I don't know why I knew. Maybe early in the morning, whatever it is when you're a kid. And I went, well, that was weird. I could like read the writing on the plane.
Wow.
When it was flying. So I couldn't see south, but I was in between
buildings. You saw it fly by.
I saw it fly, and then I turned the corner, and I saw a hole in the World Trade Center through the Washington Square Park arch.
Yeah, down by there.
And I was stuck in the city for a lot of that day, and I remember walking around, and there were planes flying over. No one knew anything.
Yeah.
Hearsay is all over the place. I remember it was almost like a movie because when I was walking up 3rd Ave, I remember people had like 880 News, and it's all those voices you're used to hearing growing up talking about this, and it's like right in your face. You don't know how you're going to get home. You know what you're going to do. It's scary. I mean, it's all – and and that's not as scary as all the stuff we talk about when you're sent to like war, you're sent to this, but it's still scary. Your worldview changes.
Absolutely. I mean, 9/11 is going to be something we talk about the rest of our lives. I mean, everybody has where they were and what happened, and it really is a defining moment in all of our lives, because it's a watershed moment, much like World War I is, that the world has changed so completely much. In every way, shape, and form, from government spending to what our focus is internationally, to what our military's aims are, to what our political aims are. Across the board, 9/11 has changed every single thing about American life today.
Yeah, it sent us to war for many years that we didn't have a way out, and it has nothing to do with politics.
My cousin's done 7 tours of duty in Afghanistan and Iraq.
See, Afghanistan was just, if you ask me, it was
sure.
Going after
that
the
was
Taliban
before Iraq. That's the craziest part of it.
And it's still going.
Yeah.
Iraq, there's no fucking reason to go there.
No.
No fucking
Well, you're seeing now Iraq doesn't even exist.
No, it's
what is Iraq but a 3-part, and people go,
Iraq is,
well, it's a 3-part,
and that's what it should be.
It's a 3-part federalist.
Maybe a 4 or 5 states. You just break it all up, and everybody gets a little nugget, and that's it.
It's not our fucking problem.
I mean, at this point, it's
so
what, tough.
Yeah,
but
it's like, but
we
think of the
created
world.
what it is today, so kind of is our problem. But
we didn't create it, though. I mean,
we
created what's now today as a result of the invasion.
Maybe we continued, or maybe we
took.
Doesn't it go back? By the way,
doesn't
that go back to World War I?
Absolutely.
How was that broken up with World War I?
Because
Iraq is
the British and the French said, "You take this, we'll take this, and we'll call it a day."
Here you go. Forget the fact that all these people think that they're one nation across all these lines. That's where it starts, and that's where it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
How do we get? How do we figure that out? So. That gets back to the fact of not knowing history. That's where it hurts you.
Yeah.
Because we all sit there and go, "Well, figure out Iraq." These people don't. The people on the ground there are like, "No, well, I don't know what. I mean, sure, I've grown up in Iraq. I just want to live my life, but Iraq."
You watch the last couple of days on Facebook, or even like the last week and a half, with people posting stuff about Hamas or even Syria, things like that. And we have people we graduated with that are on both sides of the coin, where they're pro-Israel, pro-Syria, pro-Hamas, whatever the case may be. But I'll watch Facebook, and I don't know, even knowing the origins of where it comes from, I don't know who to believe or what side to take it. And it's just such a cyclical issue at this point, and I'm just so tired of it. And like you're saying, let them handle it on their own, but at the same time, we feel like we have to step in. Well, I don't know if that's good or not.
And save our own cities, Detroit.
Sure.
I know, but that's easy to say though. But once
it's easy to say. It's our own country. It's America.
Yeah, sure.
I think a lot of Americans are getting back to that though.
I think we are. So.
Craft beer.
Yeah.
Dropping bazillions of dollars
I think,
over in
But you know what? The only thing I would say about that though, we're dropping $1 billion, but the sick part of it is we're dropping $1 billion on American companies rebuilding these places. We're not dropping $1 billion on those countries.
When you get down to it, it's in essence an investment.
Stimulus.
It's an investment in stimulus. You're absolutely right.
To build up, war profiteering companies. Well, it's really sick.
And even if you want to, wave the American flag more and be more patriotic, the reality is that Halliburton's in Iraq for a reason. There's American companies in these countries for a reason, and
a lot of jobs are created in other countries. It's easier to create.
If we're going to be bringing in contractors to another, they should be American companies.
Sure.
Well, don't they say something about the president's job stops at the shores of the country or something? Like presidents have much more latitude overseas than they do actually in our country.
I would say that's true.
You can do more overseas.
The Constitution doesn't apply out there where it does here.
Yeah, but it's not a Constitution thing. It's a fact of...
Well, Commander-in-Chief, and it's an executive role because you get answers from one source as opposed to the,
You don't have to go to all these
multitude of Congress. But the money, and that's the thing, even if you want to really talk about where people F me up on Facebook a lot, is that people don't understand Congress controls the money. But it's so easy to get mad at Obama or whoever's president because the media also does that. They focus on the one, then the...
it's easier to pick on one than 435 and 50.
Absolutely,
and 100.
Yeah, and it really is it's mind blowing. But that's the first thing people understand is it all comes from who you elect from your local district and your state. That
your gerrymandered
if you have
district.
a problem with Obama, well, it should also start at home with who you're sending to. And every 2 years, you can change that on the turn of a dime.
Senators are 6 years.
But House of Representatives are 2.
Yeah.
No, House of Representatives are 2. But think about this though. Once they win in a re-election, they got to run again.
Yeah, right away.
I joke with my kids in my law and civics class. You know, can you imagine every 2 years you got to win another election, and then turn around, it's another election, and then you turn around, it's another election.
Yeah.
Now they're more concerned about their election than anything else.
Well, then how about a guy like Eric Cantor, who builds himself up in this system to be like the number 2 guy, potentially wants to be number 1,
and he gets knocked out.
That's good for democracy.
It's very good for democracy.
That his people were like, you're not home enough.
No,
and that's your job. Your job is not to be in Washington.
Yeah.
It's to be home.
Well, even someone like Bloomberg almost got knocked out because people thought that he's a shoo-in, and there's no way he's not gonna win. He spends so much. Get out and vote. If you get out and vote, that changes everything.
Well, and isn't it sick that the Republican Party says we're going to make a lot of killing on this one because it's not a presidential election.
Yeah.
Only like 35% of people are going to vote. We can win.
And you can change
35%.
You can change so much more.
Midterm elections traditionally go, or midterm elections usually
they go to the radicals.
Not the radical, the opposite of the sitting president if he's unfavorable.
Yeah.
Like
and that's a check and
Obama
balance.
Doesn't have a good approval rating right
and that's a check and balance. That's a very good thing that a lot of people underestimate too. See, a lot of times when I do get into discussions with my friends and everything, it's the typical, oh, this country sucks. Oh, this is the. I always like bringing up little factoids that they didn't really think of how we're still doing pretty goddamn good. Like you said, you think about other countries in the world and
we are
the worries
so
they
fine
have.
when we wake up every day. No one's walking through our goddamn town
anybody watching
at
us
the
right
tip
now,
of a gun.
Yeah.
Get out of bed.
Anybody watching this right now, what's your number one concern? What's your number one biggest problem? And when you think about it,
5:45 or 5:55.
Yeah, and when you really, and then meanwhile,
I stop for coffee on my way to work.
Yeah, and you think about it like, oh God, where am I gonna?
Where am I gonna get the line at Starbucks?
But like, and around the world, where am I gonna get food to feed my kids? I'm starving. How am I gonna get water to this town? Like,
or how about you're in Africa? Like, am I gonna get raped today?
Yeah, it's just, it really is. It's unbelievable.
That level of fear and being on your toes. You don't enjoy life. We all enjoy life.
Yeah.
We have a great place here.
It's unbelievable.
We have a great place.
And you have to enjoy it. And it's almost like your duty to enjoy it, unfortunately, because it's just not the norm around the world.
I was reading something. It was from Matt Bai. He used to be on New York Times or New York Times Magazine, and then he went to Yahoo because there's like such a breakup in the world of media where people go all over the place. But he brought up this fact, and it hit me for whatever reason, even though people had talked about it, of should we be compelled to vote? As an American,
mandatory?
I know mandatory.
Absolutely not.
I mean, I know that's the right thing, but I'm saying his point, and I was reading it saying, kind of as like a petri dish thing, it fixes a lot of ills.
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking if 100% of people are voting, and maybe the problem is there's so many times we have to vote, but maybe it's just presidential elections, or maybe it's one vote out of every 4 years, something like that. But imagine the way campaigning changes and government changes if 100% of the people are voting.
Things that I've read that are kind of auxiliary to that is not necessarily make it compulsory, but to make it easier. Like, just log your computer on and vote.
Yeah, online voting.
How much
Mobile
easier
voting.
would that make it be? And it's almost embarrassing to say something like that because how hard is it to go to your local polling place?
Yeah, it's not that hard.
But that could change so much.
Well, it's more
but then you get,
too.
and then you also get into the, the prejudice of, you need a computer at that point, and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, it does go to say, if it was right at your fingertips, then you vote, and that's that, and see what happens.
Do you guys watch Scandal?
No.
I honestly don't watch much TV.
Like, Scandal is made by Shonda Rhimes, who did Grey's Anatomy and Private Practice.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty good show.
I've heard it's a good show.
It doesn't blow my mind. Like, people are crazy about it, binging it, Twitter, all this stuff. It's like so
That was like
good.
Homeland. Homeland got insane, ridiculous into the stratosphere.
I liked Homeland season
I liked
1.
it, but season 3, I
Well,
feel like they're going to put him in on a space shuttle,
Yeah.
and he's orbiting the Earth, and he's going to have some terrorist plot.
Well, they stopped making sense. It was almost like, all right, let's just get through this episode and let's see where we are next week. Like, it was so good in the beginning. And wasn't it cool seeing him?
He's like selling drugs in Colombia. It's like, what is going on with this show right now? But yeah, continue. I've heard
Venezuela thing was bizarre.
Bizarre.
Like, what is he doing here?
Why is he in South America doing heroin? You're right. Doing heroin.
Don't knock it till you try it.
Unbelievable. And then you're sitting there going, isn't it interesting that Damian Lewis goes from Dick Winters to this and he's wearing the same outfit?
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
And going back to that, his portrayal of Dick Winters.
And he's British.
Fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, and he's British. You're right. He's British.
All of our best actors.
It's like, oh my God, you forget about it.
But that show, that's Homeland got a little back on board. They brought back on their original writer, I think, and they did okay. It got weird. Like
very weird.
Something happened in one episode, like would be this momentous event, and then it's like the next episode goes on. It's like that didn't happen. It was very strange. But
sorry about that.
Scandal, the conceit of Scandal, the original conceit is that this guy was nominated president because some corporate interest had a guy who could rig the vote in like one place.
Okay.
So it was a dead heat across the country. If there was at one place in Ohio, you could
become
rig
president.
the vote to become president.
Sure.
And then they all live with that issue of having done that, and they all have to think about that to make the guy president. But that's how it's gone. Like, the problem with reading is you're so overwhelmed by everything.
Yeah.
You're constantly overwhelmed. And I kind of want to bring it back to the World War I thing. One of the coolest things with World War I is when you look into it and read about it, it started because of two of the weakest link, smallest things you could ever think.
Yeah.
Belgium and Sarajevo.
Mm-hmm.
The Sarajevo thing, and I don't know how as a teacher you teach World War I, how much of the semester it takes, if it's a full class, or I don't even know. Like, how do they teach that?
Basically, what you do get to is, like you're talking about, like, and it's funny, you know, and you've mentioned it a couple of times because you're more of a cause and effect as opposed to the battles type of thing. I'm more of a battles type of guy. I'm kind of like Chris. I like the guns. I like the weapons. I like the battles.
I love the whole the theater approach of it. The whole, I mean, because World War II was really two wars at the same time. But the weaponry, and I'm a gun person, but I love the history of the weapons behind it.
Me too.
And just the whole aspect of everything.
Sure.
The technology, the military aspect of the uniforms.
Yep.
I'll be sitting on websites looking up the uniforms and the rank
like
structure.
Hugo Boss designed the Nazis' uniforms.
Well, how about the fact with the French?
He designed the SS uniform.
Yes. Well,
how about the French in World War I?
They were a sharp-looking uniform.
Well, I said Nazi, so it is SS, so not Army, but yeah.
Yeah. It was a sharp-looking uniform. I know. I mean, it was
absolutely.
You know whose uniform was modeled after the SS uniform?
Jersey State Police.
Yep.
Because it's the German national police officer uniform. Yeah.
1921, the New Jersey State Police was founded.
Yep.
By Norman Schwarzkopf's father.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And the current
that's
uniform
that's
that
a
they
humdinger,
wear,
isn't it?
Yeah, but when you see a New Jersey State Trooper,
they look like.
Aren't they a military police too?
Who?
Aren't New Jersey State Police? Aren't they a military police because there's?
No,
there was the fort or something. There was something where they had to, when you become a state policeman in New Jersey, you had to go through boot camp. Wasn't that true?
They go through the academy.
Yeah.
They don't go through a boot camp.
I thought there was something with New Jersey and military because there was Fort Monmouth, maybe.
Yeah, but Fort Monmouth had nothing to do with the state police. That was.
Or maybe they had the police camp there at one point or something.
I thought there was something.
Yeah, but they might have had at some point where they had guys serving or something like that, but they're not a military. They're not under the military auspice of the New Jersey National Guard or anything like that.
There was something with it. Huh.
But going back to what you were saying, usually I teach it kind of like Chris is saying, because those to me are like the big showcase lessons. Like I love talking about the guns. That's what brings
and the Thompson submachine gun.
Absolutely, that brings your male students into the classroom.
They don't like the drama story.
Well,
look, we're not watching Pearl Harbor.
I'm not looking for Pearl Harbor. I'm looking for
But what you're talking about, that a lot other people that teach social studies, and I have to teach it as cause and effect. You talk about the alliance system. You talk about the weapons and the militarism. Like I said, the alliance system of Bismarck, imperialism as they took over different parts of. They chopped up the entire continent of Africa. Most of Asia was taken by most of the Europeans. China was basically chopped up, and even the United States had their own sphere of influence. You talk about all those different elements, and then you talk about how of all things, like you just said too, weirdly enough, the thing that blew it all up was a killing of a tertiary, probably not even first or second rate, but tertiary rate prince in Sarajevo, right? Which, by the way, I have a student that gave me a book one time called, like, it was something like the Encyclopedia of Weird History. Gavril Princip went to go get a sandwich.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when Franz Ferdinand came out of the hospital with his wife. And as Princip was eating the sandwich, because they were trying to roll bombs under the car. Eastern Europeans love rolling bombs under cars. That's what actually killed, I think, Alexander II.
You hit Bismarck. Bismarck said some crazy thing in the Balkans was going to start.
Yeah, of all
the
things.
War.
Well, because the Russians were Slavic and they wanted to watch over the Slavs, but he went to get a sandwich. And that's when he saw Franz Ferdinand come out with his wife. He walked out of the sandwich shop, shot them to death, and that was it. That was the spark, and that's how you talk about it.
This is the best.
That's the big reference. The old school reference is the powder keg, and that's the spark that blew up the powder keg.
I'm so blown away by this story.
Who always said that? Who's our history teacher, like freshman?
Brother Beyer.
No, the other guy.
Mutera.
Tom.
Irwin. Yeah,
Irwin was a history teacher. Powder keg he was smoking. No. But the thing, I can't get over this story because do you guys listen to Dan Carlin, Hardcore History?
No,
you've told me about him a bazillion times, and
I'll take a listen.
Phenomenal history podcast.
Sure,
phenomenal.
You would love him being a history.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a
listen. And
he'll
do 3 or 4 hour podcasts on something, and he's done 3 on World War I so far, and he's not even done. And he's like 12 hours.
Oh, there's so much.
He was telling the story because I knew we wanted to do this, and so I was trying to listen to it, read this stuff.
Yeah, get some background.
I can't get over this story and he did the right allusion to it, which was the Kennedy assassination. It's very much like that.
Sure.
Very similar. These guys, there was a group of them, and they were going to assassinate Franz Ferdinand because he was coming through. I mean, really, Sarajevo was on the very outer edge of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
That was all she wrote.
So it was like kind of going to a place and saying this is where we're going to be, and I guess you could say Dallas is sort of on the edges of our empire, even though they're a major city.
Yeah, well, in Texas, sure, yeah.
And so they go there, and they're in an open, just like Kennedy. They're in an open car. I guess
I've seen the car. The car, I think, is still. I saw it, I think, in Austria. The car is still. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And when you see the car, you're like. You're just stupefied because this is the car. In essence, this is the car. This is the object that carried the person and the people, really, that the whole world is now based upon.
Yeah.
It's one of those objects that
looks like the car that Kennedy was in.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, it very because I saw it on the same trip to Auschwitz, but it's like one of those ones you're just like, oh, this is the thing.
I mean, there were a lot of tensions in Europe and over there.
Well, they had plans for years about how they would do it.
The Germans were looking to go back in France. The French
there was going to be a war
Germans,
one way or the other, and that just.
They were waiting for the spark.
That was the
excuse. There's the reason, the excuse.
But
the excuse is the best way to say.
Relative cousin of the guy who's in charge of that place is
No, but at the heart of it, that plus Belgium being this small neutral place erupted this thing. But the interesting
because that brought the British in. In essence, that's really what dragged the British in and made it an all-out. Because if it wasn't for the British, it probably would have went the same way as the Franco-Prussian War. The Germans would have just crushed the French.
Tight,
Then they would have went after the Russians, and world history changed. But because the Belgians had such industrial connections to the British
and good waffles,
and of course, and beer, as we know.
And neutrality, just the actual principle of neutrality mattered to all these people.
And that's
we were neutral too at that point. Isolationism.
Oh, for years after.
But we were not. But we were not a means. To,
no.
What a bad.
We were not. We were a complete afterthought in so many ways, you know. And even though we kind of pushed the hand to finish World War I, that was. It could have been. Imagine if you will. First of all, the Russians caved because of the communist revolution. But imagine if the Germans, the French, and the British just kept going. I mean, from what I know, I'm drawing back to stuff I've studied before. The Germans were eventually going to cave and they were going to be done, but that could have went easily for another 5, 6, 7 years.
And it wouldn't have ended, yeah.
No, and the Americans really pushed the tide back, but tremendous to think if what would have happened if the Americans didn't join.
Well, I'm like totally, like you said, I'm cause and effect. So I get real deep into. I could read a whole book on just this Franz Ferdinand moment. And before I looked into this, Franz Ferdinand was just that band to me.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
But this Franz Ferdinand thing. So this guy's going through Franz Ferdinand. He has kind of a cavalcade of different groups driving through. And there was a group of assassins, would-be assassins.
Black Hand.
The one guy has they were calling them bombs, but they were almost like grenades. I couldn't figure out exactly what it was.
They were like the old school spy versus spy, the ones that roll.
Yeah. So this one guy goes, all right, it's my time.
Mm-hmm.
He jumps out, throws the bomb. The bomb rolls off of the Franz Ferdinand car under another one, blows up that car.
Yeah.
And this guy had already thought in his mind, all right, I have my battle plan. I'm now going to give my life. He eats a cyanide pill and then jumps in a river. He threw up the cyanide pill and jumped into a river that was 13 centimeters of water.
It was weird, yeah.
He lived. He lived,
yeah.
But it gave them the time to, get their senses back about them.
Yeah.
And so Franz Ferdinand, I've read many things. He went to visit the hospital.
The people that were in the car, yes.
When they were going to visit it or when they were coming out, they drove down a road, and it was a dead-end road, so they had to back out of the road, and they backed out of the road in front of Gavril Princip, who just is like, oh, let me finish this bite of my sandwich, like you said. Let me hang
run
over
up
the
and
car.
shoot him with a revolver. Yeah.
Him and the wife.
Yeah.
And I guess his final words were, take care of our children or something like that.
Yeah.
But what an unbelievable thing that
really
starts it.
Yeah.
And so you add that starts the kind of declaration of things. And then you said the alliances. The alliances messed this whole thing up and were the gasoline that shot the whole fire up, because you say, all right, well, the Austro-Hungarian Empire was just challenged by these damn Balkan folks,
Serbians,
who were hell of fighters.
Slavs.
They were always fighters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they're like, no, we don't.
That section of the country, that Serbian area, has always been a problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Kosovo, Czechoslovakia.
Well, the Balkans as a whole, yeah.
But is it a problem, or is it a problem of lines, of boundaries?
Well, it was lines and boundaries of a. Well, the funny thing is, the Austrian-Hungarians ran it pretty well as a multicultural state at the time. The problem is the Russians said, the Russians said, oh, well, now you're going to go investigate the Slavs, so we have to step in because we're the chief Slavic nation, and we have to make sure that you're not messing around with the Slavs because we know you're not up to. And the Austrians were like, well, we just want to kind of investigate with what happened, punish whoever did this to our prince.
Regardless of who it was.
Yeah.
We want to find out who did it.
Yeah, and they had every right because it was their nation.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when the Austrians are going, hey, you know what? Well, the Russians have a problem with this. Well, we're going to get our big backers, Germany, because we're German, we're Austrian.
We're
going to get the Germans to come help us out.
All the alliances kick into order.
And the Germans go, well, you know what, Russia, you're not going to be able to do that because we say you're not going to be able to. And Russia goes, oh, yeah, well, then we're going to get our allies, France, to come in.
Yeah, and then Germans like, well, shit, we got to go France first.
Oh, France is talking?
Because we have this information that tells us that Russia will be ramped up to military capability in 1916, so let's go.
Yeah, it's just.
I mean, it's sick. It's everything dominoed into line. And Kaiser was crazy. Kaiser Wilhelm was a little.
Oh well,
nuts.
he told Bismarck just to go home. Bismarck
one of the
single-handedly, one of the greatest statesmen of all time, tells them to go home, and just that was mind-blowing of all things. The biggest thing about World War I, at least the start of it, that always makes me tremble, and I guess it's kind of a metaphor to where we are today, and thinking about 9/11, thinking about terrorism, thinking about the world, is when the war was announced that it was going to happen. Universally, all these guys across all these nations couldn't wait to fight. They couldn't wait to get to the front line. They couldn't wait to arm themselves because, again, going back to what I said before,
they were ready to fight.
They were excited to fight.
Yeah, they thought it would be over quick too.
Because again, they went back to what they've read in history books about the Napoleonic era, how heroic it was to fight the enemy and charge into battle and
get massacred.
And they didn't realize that. And most of the commanders, their tactics were out the window.
Yeah, line formations in open fields was just.
Did you guys ever get yourself into a fight as a kid because you wanted to see how you were in a fight?
Yeah.
And you got your ass kicked?
Way back in the late second.
I remember there was this guy, Adnan Khan, Iranian. No, I'm this kid. He might have been. I don't know. He was a nice.
Khan sound. It's some sort of.
The messed up part. He was a nice kid.
Yeah.
Really nice kid. And his family owned the Blimpie shop down the road. I would go there all the time. I'd have it. I have my veggie, whatever.
Of course, you got your veggie.
Of course.
Who goes?
Veggie. Now that you.
Because I was vegetarian.
How good is bacon?
It's pretty good. It's in most things too now.
Yeah.
That and guacamole is in everything.
Oh, bacon guacamole.
It's in everything. It's the new tomato.
What about bacon in guacamole? I'm gonna try that tomorrow.
Guacamole and bacon.
Ooh.
I just divided by 0.
Anyways.
1 + 1 =
So
7.
Parents own the Blimpie.
So this guy, I just one day was like, I want to see what happens when I get in a fight. And I think this is what happened with a lot of World War I. I don't want to distill it to such a level. But I think it was like, I want to get into a fight.
Yeah.
And I want to see what happens. I want to see my military supremacy. I think a lot of people, this Schlieffen plan went back how many years? 6 years? 8 years?
Yeah.
He knew it was going to happen.
Well, Schlieffen plan was back from Franco-Prussian War, too.
It was way back. So
yeah.
I think when you make these plans a lot of times, you want to see how they do.
Yeah.
And so it's not you who's going on the line. And so they send them out. But the funny thing with...
Oh, yeah, they were numbers, yeah.
The funny thing with Wilhelm, he really just seemed like a wacky guy. And now I read the Tuckman book mostly right now. So you don't want to be totally kind of biased by one person's thing. But who was the guy in England? Edward? He died. He was the one who kept a lot of Europe kind of together.
King Edward?
Or George?
George.
They got the Georges at that point.
George's. And so he died in like 1912 or 1910 or something.
Might have been George V.
Something like that.
Or George IV.
And the other thing with this is how they were all the same family.
They were
throughout
all related.
All Europe. They were all like cousins and brothers.
It was a George because when Irish fought the War of Independence,
it was a George.
It was a George.
Yeah, it was a George. And it's the same
era.
It
was exactly.
Yeah.
The Irish Revolution started as an offshoot because of World War I.
World War I. Again, it's another one that relates to it.
It was an opportunistic time for the Irish.
Because they shipped all the British regulars out. But when the British regulars came back, that's when the Irish were in big trouble.
And then Michael Collins stepped up with the guerrilla warfare and kicked some ass.
Well, there you go.
I think it was King, or was it King Edward?
No, it was George.
No, the one who died in 1910. I'm saying in this book he kept a lot of it together.
Sure.
And so when all of these statesmen came to his funeral, King Wilhelm, I guess, he was, I don't know what he was as a sibling to any of them, but he was pretty close. And so they told this story, and it's so human. He was following the family horse-drawn carriage or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so they come to a stop, and then the queen or whatever, or the wife of the one who died, walks out of the horse-drawn carriage, and he wants to run up to be in the action to like grab her hand and help her down. He runs to the door, and that version's Secret Service was like running to the door too.
Oh
and he goes up to the door. She came out the other door, so he runs around to get her, and then the son came up and took her because no one wanted to deal with this guy. But it was crazy. But it was like that Franz Ferdinand moment and Belgium, these two kind of little links in the chain.
Yeah.
That took this whole thing down. I mean, they really did. It's unbelievable when you look back. They thought the Germans thought that they could roll through Belgium just as a way to get through to France, and that Belgium wouldn't fight, and that they would say sorry for the neutrality thing later, and everything would get back to normal.
Yeah. We got to deal with France
but
first.
But Belgium fought. And
I looked it up on Wikipedia, of course. George V was the reigning monarch of England during World War II, starting in 1910. His predecessor was his father, Edward VII.
There you go, Edward VII. Okay.
Yeah,
Edward VII. Okay.
And so it kept a lot of it together, but it was just funny hearing all these people, and we all know this. We all want to be special people, and all of these folks are in a burgeoning world where it's like the links on the chain are coming together.
Yeah.
but it's also they're still infants
Mm-hmm.
in the grand scheme of the world. So they're like, well, now we're global. Let's see if we can kind of change it all, and let's see if we can take over.
It's kind of like we said too. The economy and the economics of the whole situation were out of their control. Because it's funny because as much as we talk about someone like Edward being the King of England, he had no political power. But again,
the
because
kings lost their political power at least back in the 1800s.
But the fact that an author would cite someone so much like that, symbolically, yeah, all right, sure, they're the leadership of the country. However, on the other side of the coin, they had no political power. They had no real say what the government was going to do. In essence, the British Parliament.
Symbolical, or if you're a fan of the Boondock Saints, symbology.
It's like Downton Abbey people running it.
Yeah. But you're right. Everyone will draw back to the fact that the kings and queens of Europe were all related to each other. But at the same time, British Parliament really didn't have any sort of say. I'm sorry, British Parliament had pretty much all the say at that time. The French really were not following the king at the time. Wilhelm II, all right, a little bit so, sure, but not really. And it's just so funny because the simplistic side of it is, oh yeah, these were the kings, and they said, you go here, you fight here, we're gonna fight this, we're gonna fight that. But the reality is, it was so much more than that. And it's almost like the people who control the money and the politics almost get a pass because you could just blame the kings and queens at the time.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, they're brothers and sisters.
And at the same time, again, how easy is that? And we just talked about it. How many times does the media do that for a singular president, as opposed to the Congress that controls the money?
And that's probably why people don't focus on these wars.
No,
it's too hard.
Oh, it's very hard.
And like, I haven't even gotten in my reading, and we don't have to get there crazy, but like to the Middle East part, the Gallipoli thing is amazing.
Oh, that is such a battle
because it turns into Turkey being a part of this. And how about the fact that that Turkey had a deal with England to have ships for them, and then England said,
still the Ottoman Empire then.
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah.
And so the Ottoman Empire had a deal with England for 2 ships, battleships, and England was like, we're going to requisition them. We'll give you the money back.
Yeah.
And then they had that whole thing where Germany absconded ships into the Ottoman Empire so that they had them, and they did it by like the cover of night with English ships like watching them and trying to find them, and then they got through. And I mean, it's like this whole period of time is crazy, and the media wasn't even covering this because they weren't allowed.
Yeah.
So there's like a world war happening.
Well, Gallipoli, and again, you want to talk. That was one of the things I was going to bring up too, is that people often forget World War I was really a world war, because most of the time we just focus on the battlefields of Europe. When you bring up Gallipoli, the problem with Gallipoli is the British threw mostly Australian and New Zealand as well as Indian troops that they put, and they just threw them to slaughter with very little supplies, very little anything. Like you said, the Anzac troops, and didn't give them much of anything, and said, well, go get them, boys. Go get us. This is the Turks. It's not the Germans, so
good luck, tally ho.
You'll be all right.
And they're all people.
Exactly. But
they're all
like,
people.
I can't get over.
The Australians are English.
Yeah.
They're all. You go there. They
prisoner colony, right?
With a little funny accent, and New Zealand. It's all Brits. It's all part of the Commonwealth, but they're all Brits. They moved down there, and the prisoner colonies and all that. I mean, they're not all prisoners or were prisoners, but it's all British down there. You go down to California, Australia, and it's tally-ho, the same thing, tea and crumpets, with the kangaroo.
It's upside down, yeah.
It's still England.
Yeah, it's and like the Ottoman Empire destroyed in Gallipoli. Like, all of these thoughts that we could take over the world were all dispelled.
Well, again,
at every level, there were so many fronts.
They just basically considered the Turk, and when you watch World War I documentaries, the Turks were looked up to by the troops at Gallipoli, and furthermore, they were led by one of arguably the 21st century's greatest leaders, Kemal Ataturk. Was the battlefield commander at Gallipoli for the Turks.
That's what Turkey's named after, right?
And he's the one that formed modern-day Turkey, and arguably the most Western of all the Muslim states.
Turkey is the center of the world.
Well,
in reality, it really is. It's east and west.
He basically rose through fame through that battle.
And the blocking off, the fact that Germany, through this truce, got Turkey or Ottoman Empire, it blocked off 95% of Russia's imports and exports, because that was how they got a lot of their stuff through the Dardanelles or something.
Yeah, the Dardanelles is the strip between the Black Sea and the Aegean Sea.
So it totally cut it off.
Yeah, and it's such a thin little strip of
3 miles
water across, and that's why they could just hold it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like you get to today, and you look at what's happening with like this Ukraine thing. So I actually was ready when we were going to do this to say, isn't what's happening in Ukraine like a modern day potential fire starter of the types of things that happened in World War I? It's like these little skirmishes. Russia is trying to pick off little pieces back to its empire.
Mm-hmm.
We're protecting Russian-speaking folks who want to be a part of us, and they're just kind of eating around the edges, taking what they can.
I'm drawing a blank. That section of
Crimea.
The Crimea. There's a Russian naval base there.
Sevastopol.
Yeah.
And I think they want that back. And it was like a self-governing autonomous section of the Ukraine, but
I think it's like a guy who's just like, I want that cupcake. Like I think there's a big stasis happening in Russia. A lot of people are leaving. A lot of the people who are left are oligarchs, and I
think Russia's going to go back to the USSR. Maybe not completely.
If they can. I don't know if they can. I don't know if people want that.
Red flag and hammer and sickle, but it's.
But wasn't it amazing how truly global that moment was, where there's this war happening between Ukraine and Russia, and it's a weird proxy war where everyone's like, no, this isn't really happening. No, this is happening. We're doing this.
I think we all forgot about it, to be honest, until the plane went down.
And then when the plane hit,
because it was like out of the news.
It's like, oh yeah, that's still going on.
And that plane was like a newsjacking event. And I often think it's funny if you read something like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal.
Well, there were 2 other planes shut down recently prior to that.
Sure.
But they were military, cargo this and that. But this was because it was a separate,
which it should be,
passenger airplane. Yeah, it was.
I mean, this was a major mistake of.
I'm curious, who the hell shot that thing down?
Russian separatists.
Well, and my girlfriend asked me.
Because that plane was at altitude.
33,000 feet. That was Russian separatists.
My girlfriend asked me the same question.
Some homegrown rocket from the backyard.
No, those were
second a minute and
Buke missiles.
A mile a second. The missile flew. My girlfriend asked me the same thing because she was in the city when the whole thing went down. I was like, they shot down a goddamn,
poor
passenger plane. Malaysian Airlines.
That airline.
Stop.
I will never
buy the stock right now. Buy it right now.
That's what a lot of people say. Yeah.
I'm still convinced the other one's on some secret lair island like James Bond.
I was like, is this the other one?
Or is this the next Lost season? Anyways.
Yeah.
Regardless of who shot the goddamn thing, it's a Russian weapon. Can you imagine? Reverse the situation. Can you imagine if an American missile shot down a goddamn passenger airline?
They did. We did do that 30 years ago, right?
Well, I mean,
yeah.
They also say TWA Flight 100 if you've ever seen that documentary, but that's
no, but we actually did. That's the messed up part. And this is what.
Which one did we shoot down?
I got to see it, but we did, and we.
Not the Korean.
No, not the Korean one, and we said sorry. I saw it. There was actually 7 planes that have been shot down in this.
Did we shoot it down, or I mean?
No, we shot it down. We absolutely shot it down. U.S. shot down plane. Was it China maybe? But regardless.
Yeah, I mean, it has happened.
This is an awful global version of collateral damage.
Yeah, but the technology that what plane that is and everything nowadays.
I
think from 30 years ago.
Dude, I'm so exhausted by this shit. Like, to get on a plane.
Oh. And that's it. It's over.
Now, are you guys Reddit? Do you go on Reddit at all?
No,
actually,
a lot
of
kids go on Reddit.
At work recommended Reddit to me.
Once in a blue moon, yeah.
People do. I feel like an old person. I don't fully get it.
Yeah.
But I do know that Reddit is where you go if you want the news and it's not uncensored or filtered.
Okay.
I was so affected. I went to Reddit, and you see the main you see the main page, you don't know what's going on, but I
Yeah.
went into the search field and I said MH17 or whatever.
Yeah.
Dude, I was like destroyed by these pictures were so
It's horrible.
The pictures of the
awful.
bodies still in the seats on the ground.
Did you guys
That
see the
shit.
baby one?
I mean, I honestly, I don't even seek it out. I feel like I can imagine enough.
There's a part of me that like
Is there a Reddit app? There has to be.
I don't think there is.
But it's brutal. It really is, and
there's a part of me that seeks seeing it though, just to know in my brain that
there's
is what can happen.
It's
with
just
it.
there's nothing good, and
There's client apps for Reddit.
to think about how you'd be flying on a plane.
33,000. You're always
And-
supposed to be safe at 33,000
Boom.
feet.
That's it.
They always say takeoffs and landings are the problems, and that's like the worst part is that
33,000 feet. The
It's
plane
so
is up there
high.
on its own. There's nothing around it for the most part. It's when you're coming in for approach and landing and taking off
Yeah.
where the airspace is a little more congested. Yeah, exactly.
it slides away. Like there was the JetBlue one last week where the front tire was sideways.
Yeah.
It was off.
They
and
landed
they
it in LAX.
I just like the plane thing is totally a fair thing in today's world because everyone says, oh, they call planes an Airbus.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bus. Buses have worse things.
Yeah.
But the damage that happens from a plane happening is like, it's so awful. It's like our ultimate hubris.
Yeah.
The levels of it, just destruction. When you saw these bodies were like intact.
Yeah.
When they landed, there were people still in their seats with headphones on. And I know people say, and we all want to read it and go, how long before you just pass out? And they're like, all these articles are like, these people they passed out immediately.
Yeah, they were dead.
They were dead. But were they?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you don't, there's still that
Oxygenation,
moment.
They were at least unconscious. The lack of oxygen, they were not.
So like it hit. And
I mean, your life is over in a snap. That's the part that freaks me out. It's like
you're watching your movie.
You're going
30,000
wherever.
feet, you can't breathe.
Well, I looked it up. And because I was very interested in seeing what do people do, jumping out of planes at. It's 12.
Yeah.
So this is 3 times.
13,000.
Yeah.
13.5 is I skydived. I think it was like 13.
Did you?
13.5. Yeah. Much past that, you need. I mean, and the high altitude, like the SEALs, they do those types of
It's also
jumps.
pressurized too.
They
so.
wear oxygen masks.
Yeah.
I was so affected by this, though.
So
I mean,
they'll
everyone
jump from
was,
30,000, but they're wearing spacesuits almost. It looks like.
It's
The guy that did that fucking jump from the stratosphere.
he was in a space
He was just about because otherwise he would have went out, taken 3 breaths, and he would have been done.
Yeah.
He was wearing supplemental
Felix
oxygen.
Baumgartner. Yeah.
I was just like so into this and just like it just destroys you because you're like, man, I fly. You get your psychology around flying, and it works.
Yeah.
And it's fine. But shit, like they hit it with a goddamn surface-to-air missile.
And it's in 4 seconds or something like that. Just good night.
And then people seeing
those
bodies
things fly at like Mach 3.
Yeah.
And then people like residents of Ukraine seeing bodies flying down
and not only
from
that,
the
like
sky.
a remote part of Ukraine, and still even they had cell phone cameras, video cameras,
Yeah.
because you see that the video, the big black plume of smoke,
Yeah.
and you see the toilet paper rolls unfurling and basically fluttering down.
It's awful.
I mean, and it's not funny. I guess it's gallows humor. But the one Ukrainian guy that they were interviewing on TV, they translate for me. He's like, oh, I heard the big boom. I thought my nephew's house had blown up. But it's just like, no, this may be a world event that may change human history because it literally is a senseless act of violence.
It's completely collateral damage at a global scale that only modern day could happen. I mean, it's amazing. It's lost is constantly the thing we come to when something like this happens because there are 300 people on that plane who have lives that touch the world in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking 100 people who are like AIDS researchers. One of the people who was the president of whatever that organization was. You got families. You hear about like 3 kids being on it, and I know we all make those. My dad actually, when we fly, he tries to split the planes up. It's like, oh
wow.
But you hear these things, and
I mean, it's funny because I was at my dentist, and he actually brought up like 3 or 4 great points about it. You think about people traveling to get to Australia. I mean, there were how many Australians on the plane? Because that's the way you go from Europe to Australia,
Right.
or
Or going on vacation.
And
They got their beach stuff. The
Yeah.
books coming out of the plane. All that thing is
the
a little
passports.
capsule.
I mean, did you see how the one person had about like 15, 20 passports? Like, to find those
and the looting
out
that's
of a
going on
racket.
is
And I guess that you
How
kind
do
of
you
expect
loot that though?
I mean, there's nothing out in that whole area, but you're right. I mean, and at the same time, what kind of an area is that whole place where you're right, they're looting out, and they wouldn't even allow people to come and get the bodies.
No, and they're sticking them on refrigerated trains.
It's despicable across the board, and regardless, to me, it's just a moot point. That was it the Russians? Is it the separatists? Honestly, who
is there
cares?
any doubt it isn't though? It's got to be the separatists.
I think it is, because
Russia doesn't do that. That's an awful
they would
thing.
yeah. Well, and you heard did you hear the tape with the commander
Oh my God.
on it with the Greek, as he's known, like the Russian or the Russian separatist leader? He's like, what the hell's going on over there?
Were there any were there any guns on the plane? No, there were student passports.
Really bad.
Women and children, and it's like, oh, it's so bad. And then the worst part is the media going, well, we're waiting for President Obama to tell us how many Americans were on board, and it's like, guys, come on.
I know that's always the big.
And then people are like, did you know that Putin's daughter is living in Holland? Like, and they're going. I mean, the saddest part, well, it's a blessing and a curse that nothing's going to happen from this.
Yeah.
Because we don't want World War III to start.
Well,
we know what World War does.
That's one of Sean Penna's things that he talks about too, which I agree. All the time when my kids bring up stuff at school, you can't go to that level because no one wins when it's all out nuclear war.
Yeah.
So at the same time, I agree with his point that why do we even have these weapons? Because there's no way we're using them.
Yeah, the weapons thing is
I don't
crazy.
know what World War III is going to be fought with, but I know what World War IV is going to be fought with.
What, stones?
Sticks and stones.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the metaphor that's used. It's absolutely correct. You're just never going to get to that level because there's no coming back. And you can tell, nuke them. Oh, great, cool.
They considered using nukes during the Korean War.
Yeah.
But Russia had developed theirs.
And we couldn't.
So then we're like, oh.
Yeah, we gotta let it go.
Yeah. So then it was just conventional ground pounding.
Yeah, with Truman and MacArthur. But there's just no coming back from that.
No.
There's
and
no
that's the
coming
saddest
back.
part is that
we maintain a fleet of nuclear ballistic missiles and submarines.
But we're down to 1,200 as part of the New START agreement.
We only blow up the world 3 or 4 times over.
Russia
It's a
has
deterrent.
1,100.
Yeah. It's grown into it. We have it. It's a big whipping your dick out on the table.
Yeah.
Who's got the biggest dick?
Yeah.
Oh, so they got their missile subs off of our shores, and we got our missile subs off of their shores.
Yeah.
You attack us, it's a deterrent. You launch it at us, we're going to launch it at you.
Yeah.
So don't launch it at us, because then you're going to be dead.
And then we have shields. Like, what are these shields, by the way?
My God,
Can someone tell me what these shields are?
That's all.
Like, we have a shield that's above Poland. Like, are they transparent? What are these shields?
Well,
it's not like Star Wars.
No. But if you look at the Israelis' Iron Dome, it's just that whatever would be launched up, you just launch all kinds of counter missiles at it to shoot it down.
It's an anti-missile system.
So that's in essence the shield, if you will.
It's just so ridiculous.
But it's funny because I actually show my kids every once in a while if we have like free time, they want to like see something ridiculous. I'll show them the 1980s Star Wars Initiative video that the Reagan administration put out. The SDI video, it is hysterical because they'll show like a ballistic missile get like in the air, and they'll show like a satellites floating like pew pew pew, and it's missile like in like awful sparks and like 1980s special technology. It looks so bad, but like this is what you have to buy in Americans. It's horrible, but again, there's just nothing.
How'd it go again? Pew pew pew.
Yeah, literally, I like this pew pew pew.
Where'd you find this video? It's on the YouTube?
It's on YouTube. It's literally you could put in like Star Wars or like you said, Initiative or the what is it? The SDI Initiative.
Space Defense Initiative.
It's so brutally 1980s bad.
Oh God.
You couldn't even put it into like a sci-fi movie and get away with it. It's that bad.
Oh.
But again, like you've talked about, is this our Franz Ferdinand moment? And we don't know. And that's the scary part.
I think we're smart enough to not allow it to be, but the sad thing is that all those people died. How awful is it? I keep thinking about this fact. And
I almost feel like it's just going to be so ignored because what
do you do about it?
What's the proactive approach to dealing with it?
Do you know the last one that happened? Well, first of all, Ukraine did this in 2001.
Yeah.
There was a Siberian Airlines or something, and there were military exercises, and they shot it down. They didn't mean to. It was just that.
It's unbelievable.
Like, it's just collateral damage. Who's at fault?
Yeah.
But there was one where the Russians, I think, shot down a plane in the 80s. Was it Korea Airlines?
The Korean Airlines.
Yes,
there was a senator on that plane.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Oh,
yeah. He's got the video. We probably post it later.
Yeah.
It's too funny.
But you can't, like, there's nothing you really can do because are people going to mobilize around 298 random citizens dying who are dispersed? And, you know, the weird thing was the Dutch or whatever, where the majority died.
The Dutch, isn't that weird?
They were talking about that the prime minister or the president or whatever is having daily conversations with Putin. What the hell is he what are they saying?
That's what I was going to say. I feel bad for the people from Malaysia and the Netherlands because what are you going to threaten Putin with military action? I mean, it's funny because writing this paper for this terrorism class I'm taking, I actually cited an article. The closest you could really find to anyone accusing the Russians of anything is the Ukrainian president trying to get the separatists labeled as terrorists now, because that's where he feels if he gets international cooperation against them being terrorists, well, then he'll get some sort of military backing to deal with his problems at home. Which, again, now we have to go down that road and labeling them terrorists to now go after them. That's what we have to do. So, again, now we have to deal with the problem of international terrorism by ourselves, most likely, and then we have to worry about pissing off the Russians.
We're always doing everything by ourselves. The problem is the world's too big. There's too many interests at play.
Yeah. And like Chris said, you know, the better alternative would just be to stay out of it and just hey, blew up in your territory. That's what you got to deal with. Sorry, that's just.
But like, imagine these people, and they were long gone before they happened. But can you imagine being a person? This is very much like Lost. You lived your life maybe in, you know, Holland. What is? They're Holland, right?
Yeah,
Dutch or
Holland, yeah.
Dutch or Holland.
Netherlands.
You know what?
They live their lives there. They live their lives in Malaysia. They live their lives.
American and American. The Dutch are from Holland. It's like confusing.
And they speak,
I always mess that stuff up, and it's like,
Netherlands.
Wasn't it Ukrainia at one point, or Ukraine?
No,
I don't even know.
No.
Ukrainia. I'm gonna go on Wikipedia and change their entry to Ukrainia.
Do it, Matt McQueenie.
Is that next to Canada?
Canada.
Okay.
But can you imagine these people? Again, they're long gone before it happens. Their bodies laid in a wheat field.
Yeah.
In Ukrainia.
Yeah, in the eastern section of Ukraine, right next to Russia, in a wheat field.
Yeah.
And then there were people. Did you see the ones who they went through people's homes? And they landed in their bedrooms?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I heard about that one.
You're sleeping, and all of a sudden, it's just, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And there were legs and arms. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
And their lives ended in a Ukraine. There I can say
farmland
in
Ukrainian
field,
southeast Ukraine.
It's so awful, and it literally, this will be some kind of movie or TV show.
Yeah.
It has all the pieces.
It'll be out next week.
And it'll go between where they do the flash forwards and flashbacks. You're going to have the people in the Maidan, you know, revolutionaries going against the government.
Yeah.
And the guy, what was there, Yanukovych. He has this ridiculous home with the with the boat that had a restaurant in it and all this stuff. And he's just trying to keep power in that. So he's fighting off, and then he's like, well, maybe we'll go to the EU.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go to the EU. Nope, we're signing with Russia. The deal's moving forward. And then all the people were so brokenhearted. And everywhere this happened in the Arab Spring too, where people were fighting for something, and it all goes back. Like Egypt, it's all going back. It's going back. The field marshals running it. But the Arab Spring will not be for naught, because hopefully they can find a way again. But all these fights and this revolution in the Maidan and the people fighting against the government and getting him out,
mm-hmm.
and it leads to a Malaysian Airlines plane flying from Amsterdam or whatever to Kuala Lumpur gets shot down in the area, and we know all the facts.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter that we know all the facts.
I mean, it sucks because in essence, their deaths are going to be just kind of brushed underneath the carpet, and everyone's going to kind of move on. Because you're right.
We've already moved on. Isn't it terrible?
It is, and because you think about if they were your relatives, if it was, and again, like I said, you think about what response could the Malaysian or Dutch government have to Russia? What are they going to do? Sanction them? Oh, all right. No, we're not going to import any more beer. We're not going to bring any more Heineken to Russia. Sorry, guys. Like, oh.
And what the hell does Malaysia have?
Not much of an airline.
They got an airline. And it's government run.
Do they have any beer?
How awful is that airline just gets nailed like that? Where is that plane?
But the thing I said about that, I imagine the Malaysian execs all got called in, and they were like, all right, God damn it, this is our second one. What happened? Wait a minute. It was a Russian. The Russians shot it down? Oh, thank you, God. It's not our faults. Thank you, God. You mean we know where it is? Or crashed in? That's horrible. But we know what happened? All right, it's not us. Oh, thank God.
Their greatest thing is to find this plane. I mean, where is this plane? We're never going to find it. Has a plane ever gone away?
Frank Zappa quote, "You can't be a real country unless you have a beer and an airline. It helps you have some sort of football team or some nuclear weapons, but at the very least, you need a beer."
Yeah.
Malaysia doesn't have much of an airline. They definitely don't have nukes.
Muslim country, probably not a beer, not alcohol.
Yeah, so let's see. Malaysian beer.
2.5% alcohol,
right,
Salt Lake City.
Some sort of like weird IPA that's some sort of brewery in
or an MPA, Malaysian.
Some sort of Nevada brewery tried to put together to get a little get a little press.
Oh my God.
He's still looking. He's
I'm
got
just
nothing
like,
right now.
I think they might have a beer.
A beer.
Like we're already
it's
on.
Spelled Jaz. Is a Pilsner style rice beer first
there you go.
brewed in Malaysia. So they're a real country.
Well, how about the fact we're already on to another plane crash today?
Really?
Algerian Airlines or whatever. They went down in Burkina Faso.
Okay.
So that's the hard part with trending. Like this is why
Burkina Faso.
It's in Africa.
Africa, yeah.
This is why people move on. That was the most awful story ever, and we covered it and we read it all.
It's gone now, yeah.
And it doesn't matter. It moves on. Now we're like 50 Shades of Grey. We got a million searches.
Well, like we brought up before. I mean, how quickly did we all forget? Like, oh yeah, that Ukrainian thing. They have a whole section of their country trying to just leave.
Or how about
I
Syria?
forgot about that.
Syria or ISIS. I mean, all this.
I know.
I mean, and
the ISIS thing. I mean, nobody's really paying attention to. That's brutal.
And they're just eating into that. They're eating into that area. They're just going across.
Constant.
They're like, no, man. What does Syria mean? What does Iraq mean? We're just going to make our own caliphate. Everyone wants to go back to the 6th century. These guys. Nobody else wants that, but they're like, we're going to go back to the 6th century. We want a caliphate. Everybody, no stealing. We'll cut your hands off. No drinking.
Yeah, this is our
cover up your women.
It's like Lawrence of Arabia, but like in
and he was British,
modern form. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, that guy.
It really, and the Middle East is just every day is a constant struggle.
There's no answer. The more you
in any country or any
it's
neighbor.
Quicksand.
I guess Jordan's doing all right. I mean, every
they
country.
do okay, but there's probably some iron fists holding.
Well, they're run by a king, so that's probably an issue right off the bat. But it's so funny, like every country in the Middle East just has major problems, and it's like who's right, who's wrong, who the hell knows?
You hit it right with the Israel Gaza thing. I have zero idea who's right. And I don't know. I want to say that Israel's wrong. I want to say they're both wrong. I want to say that they really should have a two-state solution, obviously.
Yeah, but then you'll hear a counterpoint. You're like, oh, yeah.
And then people are like, well, no, did you see this article where they're destroying, they're destroying this whole Palestinian enclave. These people were just having dinner with a person from Hamas, and the whole town is destroyed. And then Hamas is literally lobbing missiles.
Yeah, into wherever it goes.
I hate to say this, but how do
launching them off like unguided V2 rockets.
Yeah. Well, the funny part. You know where they got the designs for the missiles?
Probably us.
The IRA. But that's what I'm saying. So that's a whole because worldwide terrorism just it they follow each other's tactics, and what worked with you guys? All right, well we'll try that out too with your tactics.
Sons of Anarchy.
But and every time you see it, and you almost want to just be like, can you guys just stop? Just stop don't lob missiles, and you don't fire missiles in the buildings. Can we please just talk it out a little bit, guys?
And then they step aside. They go, okay.
At this point, enough is enough. Because this whole Gaza fucking shit.
And it's such a small area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the size of fucking. It's like not even Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Like, just give it up. Let them have their fucking Gaza.
Yeah.
Just and you know what? If you give it to them, maybe they'll stop shooting rockets at you.
Yeah.
Well, you know what the problem is that they both have blame in that part, because Israel is not helping themselves. But Israel, like literally, when you look at a map, you go, Israel, the entire Middle East cauldron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Well, they're a country that everyone around them wants them to, and I commend Israel on their ability to defend themselves against. Everyone around them wants them gone.
Yeah. And that all comes down to why they don't let the Palestinians breathe an inch, because they
give
feel
them an
like
inch, they take
and the fact that if like, oh, we'll let the Palestinians slide. Well, then they feel like, all right, now Egypt's going to look to knock down our doors, or now Lebanon and Syria is going to look now. So they almost can't let the Palestinians get an inch, because, well, now you're going to have another enemy try to attack us across the border with Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is even worse of an animal than Hamas, because Hezbollah is supported flat out by Iran.
It's crazy.
Flat out by Iran.
And then it's like there's Muslim Brotherhoods. There's like so many groups, and the biggest problem is that Israel needs to stop building into their areas.
Yep.
If they're agreeing that this is an area that we're going to allow you to have, and we're all going to work out this divorce, that you can have the child on weekends, you can have this. But the problem is Palestine goes, okay. We don't think you should exist.
Yeah.
Like
Still.
They constantly say that. Stop saying that.
It's been 60 years. They're not going anywhere, guys.
No.
You might want to give up this train of thought that
they can't get that out.
Israel's just going to all go home. Like, you know what, guys? We're all going to go home now.
Literally, these peacekeepers bring them together and go, just say that Israel can exist.
Yeah, and they won't.
And you just stop building. And then Palestine's like,
nah, fuck you.
We can't say you'll exist.
Yeah. No.
We just can't say you'll exist. And it's like the same problem every time. You can throw John Kerry at the problem. You can throw Hillary Clinton at the problem. You can throw Obama at the problem. You're not helping. You ever, like, when a couple's fighting, you never jump in.
Yeah.
It's not your place. Like, they have animalistic things
every
in their
president,
eyes.
and it'll be Obama, just like it was Bush, just like it was Clinton. Obama will eventually try to jump in and try to be the one that brings peace to the Middle East. Because at the last,
I think he tried, but they always tried in like the last year.
Yeah, the last year presidencies, the last like 2 or 3 decades, that's all they try to do.
The
and
Camp David Accords and all that shit. And whoever the next president is, it's going to be the same.
Which I think Camp David was even Egypt and Israel, so they were like, all right, look, we're done.
And we have such a lobby here too. We have such a lobby.
It's so brutal. And I think now, like, people are watching and people are listening. I think of people on one side of the coin thinking we're out of our minds, even just kind of just scratching the surface on the detail, like, oh, well, you don't know this part, you don't know that part.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And it's
and
like,
maybe we do know.
We're just trying to discuss it, which never happens in the whole scheme of things with them as it is.
Yeah, you're so afraid to talk, because it's like they have some underground websites which are telling them that, like, this is happening here. Yeah. And this all started, it's the same powder keg type thing, but it's all staying within the area. Why did you take 3... why did you take, what was it? It was 3 Israeli kids. Why did you take 3 Israeli kids, kill them, and then bury them in
And then why'd you take the one Arab kid and burn him alive to death?
And they're killing kids, and it's just...
I mean, you're killing kids, guys. I mean, Jesus Christ. You're killing kids over God, and it's the same God.
It's not Jesus Christ, it's Allah and Yahweh.
And I hate to say it, but what if there isn't?
Yeah.
And then you're just killing kids.
Killing kids. You want to live with yourself killing kids, I mean, for God, okay, I guess.
Yeah, and nobody's, like, I don't think anyone's...
How many wars and have been in the name of God?
Oh, endless.
Yeah.
Endless. And Brother Byer used to say the wars for religion are the worst.
The Crusades are terrible.
And then you get
you're
civil
literally
wars.
Fighting for an ideal that you don't care about dying for.
And if you die, hey, it's my ticket to heaven. It's my easy pass to heaven.
Yeah, that was all the
40
9/11
vessel
stuff.
virgins.
Well, not even, or
99 virgins, right?
You know, just war
But a
theory.
bitch ain't one.
But just war theory with the Christian religion too. And that's the other thing I was going to bring up too. You know,
sure,
even
fine.
and stirring the pot, you have all kinds of auxiliary people like the fundamental Christians that support Israel because they want the end of the world to be kickstarted. Because when the end of the world starts, then the world ends and they all go to heaven.
And the Hellbob comet's going to come too.
Yeah, well, but that's literally fundamental Christians believe is if they continue to fund Israel and Israel pisses enough people off that will kickstart the end of the world because in the Bible it's predicted the end of the world will start in Israel. Therefore, we'll keep funding Israel money because that's going to kickstart and when we're going to be in heaven. This is what we wanted all the time.
This is great.
We want Armageddon to eventually happen through Israel.
I think Armageddon would be fun.
I mean,
we got a pretty good. Our job is in America should just be to keep things good. I mean, how lucky, like we're not in Syria right now. Can you Syria was not Syria was not that far off from where we are.
Yeah.
Like they have suburbs.
Yeah.
They have good homes. Like they have all this stuff, and then people are just running in with guns and being like, "Get out."
Syria is just a whole. Iran, same thing. I mean, Iran. Every account you read about Iran before the revolution was a great place to be in. Actually, my uncle's parents, and he was raised in Iran for the most part because they were some sort of United States workers there. But obviously after the revolution, that was a no-go after that. But they loved it.
Yeah,
Iran was a great place.
All these places which are considered, that's not necessarily the Middle East, right? Or is it?
I mean, the Middle East or the generalized.
Yeah. It was like modern.
Yeah.
It was totally modern. They'd have like cafes. Women were not covered.
Yeah.
And I actually.
Iran was very Western.
Very Western.
Very, very Western.
You saw Argo, right?
Yeah.
That was a great movie.
Yeah.
And did you? I don't know if you guys heard the Aleko podcast, but his parents. So his dad was on the Iranian national soccer team.
Yeah.
But he was Armenian. So he was an Armenian Christian who lived in Iran before the revolution. So he played on the traveling team, he played on the World Cup, and then they did some kind of one of those traveling soccer deals. And when he played in America, the Cosmos were like, "We want to sign you."
Yeah.
So his dad signed with the Cosmos, moved over to the U.S., and then Aleko's mom was going to come along. His mom signed up for her passport 1 week before
the revolution.
In the same American embassy as
right before, a week before.
He says if she didn't get out then, my parents would have never made us.
Wow.
I mean,
that's incredible.
Literally never made it. And now these places are left in just utter despair. And I do think TV is doing a better job now in trying to assimilate these stories.
They have to because the internet is going to destroy them if they don't.
Yeah, like
Homeland or all these podcasts and put it up on the internet.
Anyone. I mean, we don't know what we're talking about, but like wasn't you speak of the ridiculousness of Homeland. Brody was hung in Tehran, right?
Yeah, and they cut him down, and he just somehow was all okay to live in Tehran, like on his own.
And then they're meeting.
Yeah, they're meeting people, and it's public. It was just
the heads of government. But these things are being brought in, and Lost did a good job in the fact that a plane carries all different nationalities. It knows no bounds. It just knows a good deal.
Yeah.
And Lost was interesting because I felt like it was one of the first times where a primetime television show brought you into Iraq, even though it wasn't really Iraq.
Yeah.
What's his name? The guy Naveed or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, through dramatic entertainment, you're brought into what that world is like. Absolutely.
Did you guys ever see that Saddam Hussein HBO documentary series? It was like the show. Oh my God, that's brutal. All that stuff is brutal. We have nothing like. Can you imagine if congressmen in America were just like,
whacked.
If homegrown terrorists were like, get the fuck over here.
Yep.
They bring them up. We're going to shoot you up against this wall. Get your stuff done. These guys are playing. All these parties are just playing. It's just so frustrating. And then when we even talk about it, like this,
it's like you can't even complain in the scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean we're sitting.
It's so hard to complain in the scheme of things.
We're sitting with like the microphones that Michael Jackson sang Thriller out of right now. Literally.
Probably better.
No, this is the actual microphone. I mean,
that's the
this
actual
brand.
like the actual microphone.
I don't think it's a.
Thriller.
The SM7B.
Sure, microphones are great.
If you guys
man.
watch Joe Rogan,
The same
mic.
one, yeah.
These sound good. I mean,
If you watch Mike
it
Francesa, uses this one.
it just sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great.
So what do you guys think of the? We'll come to we'll land this plane. What is you guys are Opie and Anthony fans?
Yeah.
See, I'm like more,
Uh oh.
What?
I'm a big. I love Anthony.
Yeah, I could see that.
Whoa.
Well,
Whoa.
This guy was nuts though. What did he do?
He went on a rant.
Yeah, he shouldn't have done that. He should have known better.
So he should have hit the bitch.
well,
No, he just shouldn't have. He just shouldn't have.
But it's
wrote
nothing
It.
different from what he's been saying on the show for years.
But you're allowed to do it. But when you put it in a different medium,
when you read it on its
it's
own,
nothing different than what he's done before.
writing is different than speaking.
No, it's
if you
no,
wrote
hold on.
"Did he hit the bitch" on on Facebook or
I'm
Twitter,
telling you, having followed Anthony and even
yeah,
his
and
Twitter,
listening to his show and everything.
his
Yeah.
Twitter is nothing different
Yeah.
than anything before. He said the same shit on Twitter before.
Yeah, but at the same time, you could recognize
Not like
why
that.
someone
He was
would
over-
read that stuff and be like, "All right, wait a minute now," because even Anthony or Opie on the first show back,
I listen to that one. I don't listen to them, and I listen. I'm a Howard Stern guy.
my friend and
Listen to
I,
that
my
one.
friend and I got to a big argument about it too, because he's actually in broadcasting and he's trying to get in sports broadcasting, and he's always a big, First Amendment guy. You say what you want to say, even though I always throw it back in his court. Like, so you would say that on your? Well, no, I wouldn't say it. So that it always comes down to that. But Opie said the same exact thing that I said, and with that said, everyone knows he's said stuff like that, and he's texted stuff like that, he's twittered stuff like that. But when you looked at the tweets, it was like, oh boy, this isn't good. It's like, oh, and then especially when you looked at
It was like cruel and unusual.
and he just kept going with it and going, and it's one thing
Yeah,
to
but
get.
he ranted verbally over something versus.
No, but they said he could have pulled the gun, but he couldn't have pulled the gun. He couldn't.
I mean, then he would have been really.
Yeah,
he would've
people were giving him.
No,
I'm sorry.
He's got a concealed carry permit in the state of New York.
I know
True,
he does.
but if he pulls the gun, that's he.
I'm sorry. Don't be. I
But
learned.
he didn't.
But
I know, but you
Regardless,
can't-
we're talking about a scenario. If he did pull the gun, he'd be in really big trouble.
Yeah,
but
people seem to think that's the other thing he could have done, and he didn't do it. So give him credit. I'm not going to give him credit.
I think
for that
he, and this is where I agree with Opie too. He got angry, and Jim Norton said this a lot as he's gone on. They've all been going on like the apology tour, if you will, too.
Yeah.
We all say stuff when we get angry that we don't mean. We all get onto a riff, or we all get into just a mode where we're like, F the world, F this person, F that person. And I think the problem that Anthony had is he was showing it to the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, too, if you look at the time of the tweets, it was like 3 or 4 in the
Yeah.
morning.
And what
Like, it
was
was
he- yeah.
really, really, like, late.
Oh, that's when that happened around
No,
midnight.
I know,
But
but
why was he taking pictures at midnight? Like that part.
It was
to
a
me-
weird
Is that
deal.
illegal? Is it?
No, I'm not
Can
saying
he
it's
not take the
illegal. I'm
pictures?
saying it's weird. Like, what do you do?
it was a peculiar situation,
And he's like behind things, and you hear a shutter click
But
from
also-
the woman. I'm like,
I think it was also it's an example, and we've all dealt with this in our lives, of 2 people not letting something go, where you could make a choice, whether it was him or her, to be like, oh, that guy took a picture of me, whatever, I'm gonna drop it, or Anthony be like, oh, this woman attacked me, and then this ruckus caused all these other guys to come after me, and now I'm in. He could have let it go, but he just kept going and going and going, and
Yeah, but
unfortunately, as he got more and more angry, and we all go home and we think about what we would have said and what we would have done.
and you put it in the drawer and you
As
wake
he
up and
kept
look at the
going,
letter
and
the
you
next
look
day.
at those as a singular entity, it was like, oh man.
Yeah.
And again, it's funny because Opie Anthony did say, or Anthony, when Opie got on the air, he's like, he thought that if they did in fact get on the air that very next
It'd be
day,
fine.
they probably would have been fine because Anthony could have explained himself. But because it was over 4th of July weekend, and they were gone, I think it happened on a Wednesday night, the last night they broadcast.
July 2nd.
Yeah, that it was a done deal because they just had no opportunity to really jump up and kind of defend or talk about what happened. And again, I love the show. I love them. They've been around since before we were in high school, and I love them. But Unfortunately, Anthony just went out of his mind with a lot of the stuff.
Do you guys feel uncomfortable about the show?
What did he say that was so bad?
Well, first of all, he's throwing the word savage out, and then
C-word.
But he's also equivalent that to all African Americans.
Yeah, he didn't say anything about race.
No, he came across.
Yeah,
that
but
way, though.
he did show a picture of the woman.
Okay.
But at the same time, when you're going to go ahead and call her a savage, and then say how they are all savage. Yeah. And again, I know this is all part of his stuff that he does on the air too.
But it got public.
But that's also in context. But when the and again, it's a casualty of the media frenzy that we live in.
Echo chamber.
Especially if you're going to attack and go after somebody. Because again, I've seen him do that before.
We're criticizing a guy who for years has been saying the exact shit. SiriusXM had no problem paying him.
But he said it to his audience.
And he said he said the same stuff, if not worse, on Twitter before.
Right.
But word was also from Opie that Sirius did mention to him in the last weeks leading up to that they wanted to kind of calm it down because it's getting a little out of hand, and that was kind of the capitulating moment where it just went way overboard for them, I think.
He went, and he was just, again, he went too far, too long.
Yeah.
He kept going.
It lingered for hours.
And you know what? Adam Carolla brought this whole thing about SiriusXM is just, now they're just the man.
Yeah.
Like, they're not, like, if you're a company with shareholders, you don't do this. I'll tell you what, I'm not downing Opie and Anthony, because I know a lot of people like them, but Howard Stern is in a similar boat. He does similar stuff.
Sure.
But Howard Stern could murder somebody and they'd still love him.
No, he never gets in trouble. He doesn't do anything like this, though. That's one of the keys. He knows the line. Opie and Anthony don't know their line, and they almost need to push society to see when their line happens. That's been their line
long before they've been on satellite radio.
No, but they've been fired several times from things they've done.
But SiriusXM hired them knowing that. The whole Summer for Sam thing when they had the sex in the cathedral thing.
Well, they fired them after that. I mean, his radio fired them.
Yeah,
but
SiriusXM hired them, knowing what their thing was about, knowing who Anthony is, knowing who they are. No, you ever listen to Jim Norton's comedy?
Oh, absolutely. It's
vile. But that's it's a little different though when you got to know your audience and where you are. When you're on Twitter, you're going to the world, and you know Gawker is ready to.
I mean, Twitter. Somebody said it the other. Twitter is just the worst.
It's awful.
I mean, Twitter has never really given anything good in like any sort of media context.
No.
It is how so many people look at Tony Dungy right now. Tony Dungy's in a firestorm that he really shouldn't be in.
That? Yeah, he shouldn't.
I mean, but again, as you're a media person, as you know, you really got to watch out what you say because so much stuff can be taken out of context and exploded.
Just read the Derek Jeter manual.
Yeah, just the most softball comments back all the time.
But like sometimes I wonder too, if you're somebody who needs to get impressions and all that, I don't understand sometimes why local news stations don't purposely do a gaffe every month. That gaffe gets you on YouTube and it's lit up all over the place. Yeah. Your call letters are there. Ernie Anastas, fuck that chicken, all this stuff. I don't understand why people
fuck
don't.
Her right in the pussy.
How about when Derek Jeter was at the All-Star game, and CBS did "Congratulations, Michael Jeter."
Oh my God.
Michael Jeter.
Michael Jeter.
And then how about the beauty of the fact that CBS News then got amazing press for doing that. And then all the memes that happened where people were putting, because Michael Jeter was a D-list actor who was in like Shawshank.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
Jurassic Park 3, and they were putting Michael Jeter's head on Derek Jeter's body. Then people were doing memes about like Michael Jordan, and they were saying the Derek Jordan era.
I think it's just typical of new things coming in to knock out old things, and the old things coming to terms with that because. Even this is a medium, it's incredible because we get to say whatever we want, and anyone can listen to it.
That's the key.
And as much as I'm not a fan of Joe Rogan's podcast, because I know Sean Penna loves, it's almost like his Bible for the most part. But he had on Jim Norton, and they were talking about the whole thing. And I listened to the whole thing on the way back from Vermont.
That was a good one.
And the fact remains that. On a podcast, you can say whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, and you're starting to see that with news outlets. You're starting to see that with Vice. You're starting to see that with even Reddit. even if you're not necessarily a fan of it. But the media has to come to terms with the honesty of the internet and how much it does reach younger people, how it is instant. Whereas the nightly news is still popular, but that whole generation's dying out. And
it's contrived.
Absolutely.
Or a newspaper. Let me read about yesterday's news tomorrow.
Yeah,
How do you guys
absolutely.
read? I know you read the Chive, right? That's how you read the news.
There's not much news on the Chive. It's pictures and hot chicks, and
I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying.
the Chive's great, and their beer.
Actually,
Shout
my
out
one
to the
friend,
Chive.
my one friend turned me on to a really good daily email called Quartz.
Oh yeah, they're owned by the Atlantic.
Yeah, it's really cool because they give you like a nice little like 2-sentence blurb of like each story.
And then you could click on it and
You click on like whatever. Yeah, check it out. It's cool because it gives you like a nice little.
And I want to hit on that stuff. Will you guys subscribe to the new Anthony show? $7 a month.
I'm probably going to.
I might just even for like
at
the first month. Yeah.
Maybe. In his house, and they're gonna do it. He said he might move to his apartment too. I'm actually very interested to see how that does, because I think that's really good for podcasting.
It's huge.
There's not people who charge for.
I mean, you
podcasting.
really could be a pioneer, especially
Anthony-
tweeting.
Before it's called Live from the Compound. It's on the fuck website.
No, it's the same one. Yeah, that's what this is. It's gonna be live on the compound.
No, but this is a subscription. He had a TV show.
He's had it before.
Yeah.
He's had a TV show, and
He's
he
just bringing
has
it live.
like
yeah.
a
Real studio.
real good production studio in his basement.
Yeah.
Like this.
No,
Just
it
kidding.
makes this look like nothing. I'm talking
No, it's
video.
not that far off. Well, yeah,
No,
video.
I mean, he's
thing
got
is-
millions.
He's got a green screen.
Yeah.
It's on
He doesn't have
Ustream.
better mics though. He has RE320s.
Yeah, it's on Ustream, and he's got this whole module where you can put the different backgrounds with the green
Yeah.
screen. Yeah, it's
I
a
think
good,
that's
it's,
cheesy though.
It's
that
a good
thing.
system. It looks pretty cool,
Yeah.
but
I like how Joe Rogan does it. I like that he paid for his own studio. He's built his own network. He's got like 300,000 people downloading every episode. And he just gets people in to talk.
Yeah.
And because he's become a place that people download, bigger people come.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
The Jim Norton episode was really good.
It was really good.
There's something nice about going on a long trip and listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, because you know it's going to bring you the whole trip, basically.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Jim Norton has personally called me a retard with Down syndrome.
Oh, nice.
I was at a show in the city a year and change ago, and I was at a few of these, and I was kind of talking out during the comedy show, and he's like, "Who's that retard with Down syndrome?" Blah 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 blah. So, yeah, Jim Norton personally has called me a retard with Down syndrome.
And you still love him to death?
Jim Norton's awesome.
I often wonder with guys like
Fucking
Jim
hilarious.
Norton. No, he's very damaged, and I don't mean that.
Oh,
meanly.
yeah.
His sexual things and all that.
It's
kind
so
of stuff.
funny. All comedians, especially because that's kind of the one thing that they've gone to the last few years is kind of like they just bring comedians on. They talk about.
Yeah.
The most funny people are the most effed up people
Yeah.
out there.
And you
they
rely
have
on
so
them.
many like they
Jim
were.
Norton,
Did you listen to the show
Louis
today?
C.K. No,
Oh.
I haven't listened to Opie and Anthony in a while.
The show today, they were in Montreal at the Just for Laughs festival. So they had all the comics and Ron White, Dan Soder, all these different comedians. But it was hysterical because they all like are talking about the most effed up things. They've all seen each other, had sex. They like when their girlfriends sleep with other guys, so then they could be jealous as they sleep with them. Like just totally all effed up stuff. And they're talking about so casually too.
You ever
And
hear
don't you
Jim
think-
Norton talking about Monster Rain?
Oh, absolutely. It's
Oh my
crazy.
God. Monster Rain. It's sick shit.
It's crazy.
And
but
don't you think that's because comedians are so afraid about the nerves of having to perform every night
absolutely.
that they have to create these
absolutely.
artifices
Yeah.
of a world so they don't have to remember it and go to it. Comedians are, I think acting is tough. Although, James Garner just died, and he was like, "Dude, acting is not that big a deal."
Yeah. Well, that's a man's man back there.
Yeah, that's a man's man.
The,
but
the,
like,
the great actors. Now it's all just bullshit.
and it's inside the actor's studio overplaying the acting.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Talk to your students now.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
And but
What's
I think
your motivation for this?
I think the stage is the next level. That's where you like separate people. And Jim Garner was actually nervous of going on stage. I don't know how people go on
Oh,
stage.
You have to
man.
get. It's one thing being in front of a camera or something like that.
Yeah.
Somebody's like,
And there's a
take
take,
two. Okay, fuck, I fucked that up. Let's do it again. When you're live in front of an
Yeah.
audience,
and you're like, like I said, I saw Bryan Cranston all the way. When you see a guy like that who is, was Walter White, he won like every Emmy,
Yeah.
and he is like the highest level of acting. And then he decides, I'm going to go try to build up this Lyndon Johnson story. They started in Cambridge. They built it up to get to Broadway. Now he's on Broadway. Every single day, he has to deliver.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like Sundays, matinees, you have to deliver twice in that day.
Yeah.
You must wake up at night in cold sweats.
Yeah. Or the people that sing. Imagine singing like that.
Singing.
That's an even added dimension to it. I mean, acting's one thing, but then you have to act and sing. Whew.
There was a video I saw recently. It was someone with Down syndrome or some sort of mental retardation.
With Katy Perry?
No, they sang the national anthem at some sports venue, and fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
Could you imagine how anxious and that person was?
They're not. Sometimes they're not as anxious though.
They might not have been
because their social cues are not the same.
But could you imagine getting in front of 80,000 people at the Super Bowl, and not just that, but on national TV
and sing?
But there's you don't see the TV cameras, but you see the people that are there, or it's just unbelievable. I can only imagine being a hockey fan or a Yankees game or going out and singing the national anthem in front of tens of thousands of fucking people.
Do you remember the Maurice Cheeks moment in Portland?
Yes, when he went up to the girl.
And the girl, she messed up and she couldn't think of the national anthem anymore. And Maurice Cheeks walked up to her and put his arm around her and helped her finish singing it. It was like one of the all-time moments.
Yeah, that's cool.
Too bad he didn't turn out to be a very good coach. But I'm so blown away by like Broadway acting because us doing this, I mean, you guys were probably had a semblance of nerves coming into doing this because you don't know how it's going to go. It's like
the first time, this being my second time, it's a walk in the park.
I mean,
the first time I was a little.
But it's like you're afraid that it's not going to. The one thing I've come to trust in doing this is human conversation.
Yeah.
And I've like tried to do it myself too, which teaches you to another level even.
Sure. But
you trust the ability to talk. When you add 3 people, it's just it's like tennis with 3 people. It's juggling, it's tons of people. But we're doing this and we're recording. The heat on us is not that terrible.
Yeah.
We're gonna get our downloads. We're gonna get or whatever. But being on stage.
This is really your 72nd podcast.
Yeah.
Wow.
But being on stage is just.
Could you pick any worse a picture to put on me on your Facebook post?
Oh, it was very artsy.
That's
actually
a selfie.
We don't want to show your face.
Just kidding. Fuck off. That's actually
they were pretty good. They were pretty good photos.
That picture's from the DR.
But isn't it amazing when you get into it? And I feel like with these, and that's why we keep going here, that it's like running. You get past the first mile, and it's like, dude, I got to carry this thing.
Yeah, I got to keep going.
You got to keep going. Yeah. But I almost go to these Broadway shows, and I've changed my conception on Broadway shows. I used to think they were something I didn't want, or perception, not conception. It was born. I didn't want to go to them because you're just like, oh, it's Broadway, it's old people, it's all this.
Oh, your perspective changed when you get older with that.
Broadway's freaking sick.
Yeah.
You go to any Broadway show. First of all, I saw this one. You had Bryan Cranston playing LBJ, doing an unreal job. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm nervous for him, even though I know he's fine.
And he's done it like probably at this point like 100.
It was the second
times.
Second to last day, third to last show
of the run. Okay.
Of the run, and it will be a movie soon. But it was just high level going.
Yeah.
Michael McKean was in this. You remember from Coneheads?
Oh yeah.
The dad from 90210 was in this. Like, you go to Broadway, and that's where these people went.
Yeah.
And it's no downplay. Like, they go there. They live in New York City.
Yeah.
There's something cool to do in Broadway shows.
There is something, and it's old school, too, because you have to do it every day. You have to do it in front of a new audience. It's very similar to sports because you got to perform to your highest level every single day. A little different from sports because there's not it's the same lines and the same setting.
You can go 0 for 4 in sports one day in baseball.
Yeah.
You can't do that in this.
Yeah, there's no way.
That would scare the shit out of me.
It really is. And
the lines, 3 hours of lines?
Yeah.
What's he looking at?
He's looking at the podcast right now live.
Live. I mean, it's like 25 seconds delayed, but that's fucking crazy.
I know,
I'm
right?
looking at us live on the fucking camera because I went like this, and this is fucking crazy shit.
Awesome.
I know. It's live. Like, Google's amazing. They just give it all for free.
It's got like a 30-second delay by the time I'm sure it gets to their servers. And
you're on mobile, too. Mine's a little delayed. Like, I've been watching us the whole time.
But, yeah, it's...
Wow. No, it's technology's crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
And I'll tell you what.
It's crazy.
I don't mean to, speak with too much confidence, but what we're talking about is a lot better than what a lot of people are talking about on these Google Hangouts.
Oh, I'd imagine.
Like, we're coming to this with a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like, let's talk about world. Who just says let's talk about World War One? This is why this is cool.
Yeah.
If you're on the news, you got a 30-minute show.
Yeah.
22 minutes of real show. The A block is going to be this social media person. The B block is going to be this celebrity who's come back from addiction. Like we're like, no, dude, let's talk about World War One.
Yeah, no.
And all the connections of it.
It's more on demand too, because you get what you want now. You know, you don't have to. You know, oh man, I really wish there was something on TV about World War One. You know, you gotta wait. But
well, the History Channel used to be about history. Now it's fucking reality TV.
Just like MTV used to be about music.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now it's about Jersey Shore.
I don't even think it's about that anymore.
Mom.
It's moved on. It's Teen Mom. Yeah,
it's
True Life. I'm a beer drinking podcaster.
There's no reason to watch TV.
I don't watch much TV.
You guys cord cutted yet or no?
Not yet.
Sports kills you with that.
That's the thing. I need to be able to watch. And one of my biggest gripes is we have Dish Network at my motorcycle clubhouse. Dish Network does not carry MSG.
Yeah.
And it does not carry Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, this guy became a Yankee fan. That's a little weird. He was a Mets fan. He became one.
So there's a few Devils fans in the club.
Too easy.
And you want to sit down and watch the goddamn Devils game, and you fucking can't.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's holding me on. I don't really watch. The only TV show I watch is Sons of Anarchy.
I guess when Amazon, they seem to be the ones taking the lead, and really like, all right, if we finally get all the cords cut, we're gonna make all the money in this, and someone's gonna do it eventually.
And Netflix.
Netflix, yeah.
Netflix. I have the Netflix. I have the Hulu, and I love my Apple TV at home.
I love my Apple TV too.
Apple TV's good. In the house, I got 2 Chromecasts, an Apple TV, and a Roku.
Yeah, I got
Roku is actually the best TV streaming device. It has it has every content option there is. Problem with these things is a lot of them need a cable subscription in order to get.
That's the problem. And my internet is through Verizon too. But
mine's Optimum, my cable. So.
Yeah, you're forced one way or the other. And if you would just get the internet by yourself,
an arm and a leg. Yeah. It's cheaper to get the triple pay package.
It's bad.
I mean, look at the phone. The phone is the funniest part.
Who the fuck uses a home phone anymore?
Not me.
I don't know why we need them.
You don't. I can't remember. I don't even I don't give my home phone number out.
Well, that's
anymore.
the story I tell you.
No one answers the phone.
Yeah, a great one about technology is AT&T. At first, with cell phones, was like, you know what? This is a fad. No one's gonna want cell phones. And then all of a sudden, the cell phone companies took off like wildfire. I'm like, wait a minute. We need to know what the hell. Buy Singular, and they bought out Singular for like $1 billion. They had the cash reserves, Singular. And they became AT&T. But that was because AT&T got so far behind because they were so stupid. And again, this is a symbol of the old generation not buying into the new, which is we're kind of dealing with that. We're
even
pretty
before
much at the forefront
the smartphone craze, the iPhones.
Oh yeah, there's just the cell phones, just cell phones.
I had a cell phone in the senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Nokia. The little fucking. The best thing you could do on the thing was play fucking Snake.
Yep. Yeah.
Snake.
Yep.
And even in text messaging then wasn't like you actually still called people then. But I had the cell phone.
I'm freaked out by calls now.
Yeah, I'm like, why the fuck?
Why are you calling me, dude? And they almost have to call you twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, all right, I didn't pick up the first time, but he always picks up the second.
I'll pick up the second.
All right, dude, you made me wait twice. All right.
It must be important.
Yeah.
I tell my wife, and of course she's pregnant, so I shouldn't be in the space. But I'm like, okay, but if I'm in a meeting and you call, please text after.
Yeah.
So I know.
You need me to call you back. It's not just a bullshit call.
I was in a meeting with a guy, and he goes, pick up every goddamn call. Your wife, he goes, I've been married like 4 times.
Yeah.
He goes, pick up every call when she's pregnant.
Look, I'm a seasoned vet here. You need to pick up that call.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, you know what? You're right. Screw business. Although a part of me's like, I don't want to pick up the call every time. Because you know how teachers are when they're not in season.
Oh, my God, forget it.
They're like looking for people to talk to all the time.
I've been posting so much on Facebook now. I'm making myself sick. Jesus. Or commenting on like every little thing.
Yeah, the cord cutting is interesting. I think
it's coming. It's coming, but it still has yet to be necessarily practical.
The net neutrality thing is brutal with that.
Yeah, that's something I feel like I should be more up on. I'm not.
I've tried to get up on it, and I thought I had a good understanding of it, but there's so much nuance to it, just like anything else.
Yeah.
You know, I kept hearing net neutrality, and when I'm going through all this World War I stuff, I'm like, I keep thinking of Belgium, neutrality, neutrality. And there was one quote I just heard come in here when I was in the Tuckman book, and it was like, it said something about how going back to neutrality after all the stuff that happened in Belgium originally is like going back to virginity.
Yeah.
You can't
undo it.
You can't do it.
And I'm not going back to virginity.
Well, you can't. You can't be half pregnant as a.
And I think it's very indicative of the U.S. world, views and our international policy that now that we have done this, like, Chris was saying, let's just get the hell out of Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, it's almost like now that we've done it, we really can't just get out of it.
There's a lot of communication strategies that go into undoing things.
Oh, tremendous.
Or your foot's in the door like a salesman. You gotta finish it.
Because now it looks like Iraq's going to fall apart from what we left it.
It really will. And
Afghanistan, I mean, there's a reason why we haven't left it after being there for 13 years.
And there's a part of you that wonders with like Iraq that will it really, like, it seems right now it is going to fall apart to all hell.
Yeah.
But is there a certain unknown threshold where even the people who live there
have had enough?
We don't want this to be completely destroyed.
Yeah. We would like to vote for our leaders, please.
But you look at like the Kurdish at the top. They're like, no, we want our own country. Like, they almost need to remap the country.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even if they just give them little sections, just something.
Because Kurdish goes from, like, Iraq to Turkey.
Well, even into the Turkish border.
Into the Turkish border.
Because they've treated them like crap, too.
And they're fighting. And then you got ISIS who wants the middle.
Yep. Yeah, I know, yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's
and then
really
the Shiites on the Iranian border.
And I never get those two right.
Yeah.
Shiites and Sunnis. I'm like, wait, are the Shiites the minority in this country?
Well,
or are they? I have such a problem.
The way I teach to my kids is
the Sufis.
It always comes along with when they had that big rift or that schism in Islam, is when we went to Iraq, people forgot that that's right where the rift and the schism is. And when we kicked out Saddam Hussein, who was controlling the Shiites, well, now the Shiites want revenge for all the Sunni stuff. And we basically unearthed the civil war, kind of like when the Russians were out of the Balkans. Like Chris was saying, the Balkans are a mess. Once the Russians were gone, because they threatened to kill everybody, like, oh, now the Russians are gone, so now we can go back and kill each other. Like World War I never happened either.
Yeah.
And it's like, we didn't go through 2 world wars, and now you guys are back at each other's throats already. It's like you guys are, and in Iraq, you guys are going back to an 800-year conflict.
Well, that's the thing. They have the long game. We don't have the long game. We're like, all right, 10 years. They're like 1,000 years.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking at.
They don't care.
And I just look back at that Saddam thing, that HBO thing. It was a little silly, but it was, it was good. It was modern and it was old. But it was that point where like Saddam's people just lined up like these legislators against the wall and just shot them.
Yeah.
We are so lucky our dignity is maintained. The worst our dignity will get right now is maybe we lose our job and we're put under this society. Like,
no one's gonna put us on a summary firing squad.
Like, you go from one day just being normal, and then you're on a firing squad. Or Uday Hussein has like a Western style party in his house.
He likes your girlfriend, and he's gonna now kill you.
It's like mob. It's mob rule. It's freaking crazy.
So many ways.
You know what I was looking at the other day was I did an episode about, and we'll come towards the close of this. I was doing an episode about James Garner and melanoma. But I was talking about James Garner, and I was saying about, with an old-time actor, how you experience that actor might not be in the roles that they were their main person in. Like him, he was in Rockford Files.
Sure.
And Maverick. I didn't know him that. What did I know him in? Do you guys see Fire in the Sky?
Yeah.
Scariest movie I've ever seen in my life.
Movie. Now,
the alien abduction movie, right?
Yeah.
I remember that one.
In scouting and going on weekly camping trips and Boy Scouts and summer trips, and that movie scared the fucking piss out of me.
That movie is a humdinger.
Because every time I went camping, every fucking light in the sky, I swear to fucking Christ, the goddamn fucking aliens were going to come and anally probe me at Boy Scout camp.
Even Roger Ebert said that was one of the most intense abduction scenes ever. And we were all like 11 years old then, 10 years old. I talked about this, but I went with my brother, who was 7, and another friend who was like 11 or 12. We went to a theater. And the trailers didn't show
No.
a thing.
Yeah, no. It was just like, oh, sky,
Yeah,
flash.
no. All they showed was like
Aliens.
Oh yeah, him going up in this. Yeah.
They showed the white
The
hitting
movie
him.
came out in '93, so we were 11.
Yeah, we were 11.
Oh my god.
I did this, and I felt like silly putting this episode out talking about this because James Garner, I'm not kidding, when I saw he died, I was like, I have to do an episode about Fire in the Sky. That movie changed me forever. Like, I was ruined for 4
Anytime
weeks.
I'm on some random side road and I see a logging cutout,
It is a
I'm telling you, that
frightening-ass
movie scared the fuck out of me. Anytime I was camping, and I was like, on top of the fact that the Boy Scout camp I went to is where the first Friday the 13th was filmed.
Oh, Blairstown?
Oh, yeah.
Camp Novi Bosco.
Novi Bosco, yeah.
In Blairstown, New Jersey.
But, like, you can't come out of that. That was, and I feel that movie only made $20 million, and it was like $15 million to make.
It was one of those that just lingered on HBO or video.
Do you ever see D.B. Sweeney?
No.
And when you see him in a role, I turn it off. He was ruined. Everybody was ruined. But I remember James Garner in that role forever.
Yeah.
He was that investigator going after them, not believing them. And do you realize how many unbelievable people were in that movie?
Yeah.
You had Robert Patrick, who was the brother-in-law.
Yep.
Terminator 2.
Which we met. How great was that when we met him
At
back in the
Ramsey
day?
Outdoor?
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you work there too?
No, I went with him the one day.
I was working that day, and you swung by,
I actually told the story.
D.B. Sweeney, Robert Patrick, Craig Sheffer.
Peter Berg, by the
James
way, was in
Garner.
that movie.
Wow.
Peter Berg. And do you know who else? Elliot from E.T. as an older person.
Really?
One of the guys in that. I
actually, being that James Gandolfini died somewhat recently, I have his autograph on a piece of shitty ripped up paper.
Yep.
To Chris, blah, 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 all the best wishes, James Gandolfini. I actually think I posted on the Instagram when he died.
I started watching
I
started trying to watch
I
The
always
Sopranos
mean to
again.
do that.
Such a great show.
I always mean to watch them over again.
It's so hard to watch any of these shows over again.
Yeah.
Like, I want to watch. I always get on a bender where I start and I get through a bunch of different. Like I'm trying to do it with Breaking Bad.
And then you're like, fuck it. Breaking Bad. I've never seen a minute of that show.
Oh, good luck. You got so much ahead of you.
Oh, you would love it.
You'll love it.
You'll love it.
There's nothing like that show. That show
Yeah.
is modern television. And then The Americans, you watch that?
No.
I haven't seen that, but
That's the thing about the like Russian spies or something.
Yeah,
In
it's
America, yeah.
very good.
But you literally like.
A lot of Kerry Russell sex.
There's not. Oh, there
a
you go.
lot.
There's not too many.
Orange is the New Black.
I've seen that.
People-
Apparently
I'll tell you what, people love that.
I called it Oz for Women.
Yeah.
It's just. It's.
Apparently, there's a lot of lesbian sex in that
Is
show.
it me, or do people love that more than it's good?
I think it
I don't
became a
know.
kind of a cult thing that
Yeah,
people
I think.
rallied
But is it
behind.
woman? Is it a female
Women,
cult thing?
but definitely women.
And maybe that's what it is.
I thought it was entertaining. Like, but
Decent.
my girlfriend like blasted through all 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So, but I would sit down and watch it. But again, like for me, knowing what Oz was, I felt literally like it's Oz for women. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna really watch this and enjoy
Yeah.
that. It's good. I can see why it's good. It's entertaining. It's funny. But like you think someone's gonna get stabbed out in the yard, like it's Oz, but it's like, oh no.
And then there's comedy.
Yeah, it's like no, we're just gonna. I made you a cupcake. Like what? Wait. This is Oz. What person's getting slashed with fingernails to death?
Yeah, I think it's a great show for women, and men enjoy it. It's sort of like those Pixar movies.
Yeah.
They're great for kids, but adults.
I think it's definitely marketed more towards women.
But
Although being
adults can find connection with it.
You know, being a obviously in a women's prison is a big part of it being up. I think more for women.
For me, I root for it because it's Netflix and it's very ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard House of Cards is great.
Oh, you haven't seen that?
No, I heard it's great too.
I know you were a big fan of it.
But
House of Cards is great.
Breaking Bad is one of the few shows where literally I've watched it by myself and will shout like, I can't believe that just happened. Like it blows your mind. And every time you think it's gonna be like he's got things solved, they just F up even more. And it's just
so well written.
And sometimes it's funny. Sometimes like, oh my god, that's the most depressing scene I've ever seen.
And like funny with death. Like,
by the
where
way,
like a body part like falls.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's crazy. Gallows humor across the board.
There you
go. My girlfriend again, because I've been like doing papers. She left on MTV. I think after like watching Teen Mom or something, and Boy Meets World has been on during the day.
Oh, it's
lately.
back. The new one or the old one?
Mr. Feeney's, I think, niece, Carrie Russell.
Really?
Carrie Russell a young Carrie Russell, and the older brother's like jumping across the fence to like try to talk to her and stuff. Wants to take her to the carnival. I was dying laughing. I'm like, Harry Russell was getting work.
Yeah, that stuff
way back in the day.
That stuff will
man.
happen a lot where you run into like actors just showing up roles. Americans is very good though, and it's on you guys Amazon Prime. Are you Amazon Prime people? 'Cause
No.
It's pretty good. It gets you the 2
There's only so much money I could spend on the media stuff.
Yeah, but
man.
it's only $100 for the year.
Yeah,
and
but
then
100 here, 100 there. This shit fucking between
it starts
Hulu
getting
and
bad.
Netflix.
Yeah, but we're paying $150 for cable.
I understand. Well, yeah, if I cut the cord, yeah.
But this
absolutely.
one, but this one gets you get 2-day shipping. This is where the pyramid scheme of our episode starts. No, but you get 2-day shipping. You get 1 million songs for free.
But if you call in now,
yeah, no, you get that. You get there's a free book a month. It's pretty good. It's better. It's almost better than Netflix in the value. And they've gotten a lot of shows. They got Justified, which I still have to watch. There's so many shows I have to watch.
Oh, there's so much stuff now. It's
and
media
I just don't have the time. It sucks getting older. You just don't have the time to binge out like a day.
That's where I am with video games. I used to be a big gamer and stuff. I don't even remotely turn on.
You have to save yourself from it.
Yeah, well, it's
because the whole time you turn it on, you're starting to like think about what else do I have to do.
Yeah, I can't do it anymore. It's like I don't want to hang up the jersey in the rafters, but it's like I feel like I have to get to the point and tell my friends like, look, I know it's a cool game, but I can't guys. I can't. And the money you have to throw down on these things
the money's crazy, and it's all just like a game. Last thing here, how do you guys read? Because I have a lot of problem with that. Now that I have a kid coming, I'm a little afraid. Like, do you read in the morning? Do you read papers? Do you read books? Like, what is your...
I don't read.
Well, you know,
you read the Chive and Wikipedia?
Anything I read, it's all on the computer. I'm actually nearsighted. So to actually take a book like this, it's just not my cup of tea.
I use
It's funny because I think, and I hear this all the time being a teacher, kids don't read, but, well, they do because so much of everything that is now in front of kids is all
it's on a screen.
internet.
Yeah.
You read it or you see it.
They're more informed than ever.
It's and I think we have now also have had nights like this. We're talking about television, TV. These kids don't watch television or TV. It's all Instagram. It's all Facebook. It's all Twitter, and they just intermingle the three or whatever other things they're doing, and there's no TV.
I'm totally gonna give myself a shameless plug. Instagram and Twitter, Medic3248.
There you go.
Boom.
But that's
the Kanye thing.
But
yo, she doesn't deserve this. Yo.
I want to see if that works. I want to see if I get any more Instagram followers.
But it's done for those type of mediums because we might be going the way of like you're saying the morning newspaper or the evening news, the way that we watch and consume television. Because while movies are still going pretty big for younger people, television is just going out the window. You ask kids if they see it,
they like YouTube videos, right? Like
exactly,
like little webisodes.
Yeah,
and
it's completely different than what we know. My girlfriend and I picked up on it, more so because it was her first year teaching, as opposed to me, because I guess at this point I don't really necessarily care what they're doing in their own home lives. But she said, yeah, these kids are just all Twitter and Instagram and everything else. But with that said, I think it's underestimated how much kids actually do read because, Facebook, text messages, things like that. In essence, that is reading. Now, it's not formalized reading and it's not reading of books, but much like Chris said, and I think we are all of the same mind where if we're not sure about something or we want to clarify something, we look it up on Wikipedia. We look
Instantly,
it up on Google.
If I'm like, oh, shit, I'm right on my phone and I'm like, what?
And I think the key to future reading and readers is not only obviously researching and looking up information, but also how to write proper information and
curate
and facilitate it too.
Yeah. What do you read though? Like, do you read papers?
I've always been, like you said too, more of a television guy.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I also have a lot of luck in the sense that I have partially, I guess, photographic memory where I can pick up stuff quick and I can read stuff real quick, especially when I'm putting stuff together for my kids or looking up something, or it just kind of comes natural now. But some books, my girlfriend's got me more in the books because she reads a lot of stuff.
Girls read books more.
Yeah, they love it way more.
Guys read current events.
Magazines. I'll read Wikipedia. Like sometimes my friends will talk about going down a Wikipedia hole, where you just keep like.
Oh my God!
You hit the next thing.
You look.
They hit
you
the
look
next
up one
thing
on Wikipedia. Next thing you know, you're. Oh my! It's the same thing with YouTube.
Yeah.
You look up one video on YouTube, and next thing you're like, "What the fuck am I looking at?"
You got a completely other genre.
That's why I like reading magazines and papers sometimes.
But that focus you should use sometimes, and that's where picking up something solid on paper gets
and and I don't read actual papers. I read them like on my iPad.
Sure.
But I like the fact reading like a magazine or a paper that I can finish and I know I'm done. There's something that's psychologically satiating about that.
Yeah. I don't think books are going away, and I don't think paper's going away.
No, there's more of a rich and a poor, and there's less of a middle class, I think, in content now. But yeah, no, books are great. I think I've gotten to the point where I like long form better. So I'll try to read like the New Yorker or the Atlantic or New York Times magazine, because they put a lot into those 10,000.
Much like other tastes, your literary tastes change. How you consume media tastes change. I think, like you said too, as we get older,
media technology changes too.
That's true too. Yeah.
It used to be newspapers, and then radio came out, and then television, and then internets.
Yeah. And I also think just the time. We don't have time to bullshit around. Give me what I need to know, and then that's it.
That's why I love doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have a couple beers, you have a couple mics, and people can just people were having these conversations anyway.
Yeah.
And now they're recorded, and people.
My one friend's pissed because he wants to go to the bar and basically to have like the same type of conversations based off of
Son of a gun.
What we're doing.
Wow, you got more tonight.
Hey, teacher.
That's true. All right. Well, I think we've covered it all.
Indeed.
So everybody, keep listening. Keep subscribing.
Yeah.
Everybody, please review on iTunes, even if it's a bad review, because that helps. That helps the algorithms to get the show further up.
Exposure.
Just give anyone who's on the show should give 5 stars because they're a part of it. And yeah, man.
Just a quick shout out. Recent Jersey City police officer Melvin Santiago, who was killed.
Yep.
Waldwick police officer Chris Goodell, he was killed on the side of Route 17 in Waldwick. And then former University Hospital paramedic in Holy Name Hospital was killed in a medevac crash out in New Mexico, Rebecca Syracuse. So just remember those people out there doing it.
I was in Jersey City that night, but I was just down by the waterfront.
Nowhere near.
Not uptown.
Yeah,
the West District is a shithole. I was at the funeral for the Jersey City guy, so just keep those guys in your memory and remember them. That's all.
And if we got to that memory, I appreciate everybody because
it's late.
It was 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Dude, that's longer than the one you and I did.
Are you going to be able to drive home?
Oh, yeah.
On a motorcycle at 11:30?
I always ride late.
You can follow me because I got to go to Westwood anyways. Not that everybody needs to know this.
Actually, I think I'm going towards your neck of the woods.
Are you really?
Yeah, Marty's.
Oh, okay. There you go.
God, you guys have nights? I'm like going to bed and going to go.
Dude, I was in bed till 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
I'm off. Wednesday,
well, I think this is a good group, so we could do it more.
I would love to.
This was fun. Definitely, I'm down again.
Yeah. So as we have our little discussion with you guys, bye.
Take care.